I put one of my people on that.
Okay, good. All right. Connect. Oh, yeah, I should do that. Oh, yeah, I should do that. Unless you set up the recovery, which that's an option with Edge Wallet. Probably didn't. I'm guessing he just got a letter wrong.
Flash newsbeat
on his username wrong.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Capitals don't matter with Edge Wallet.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. You can bring up whatever you want to talk about. And we've got a lot of stuff that we want to discuss. Last night we had an extensive interview with Dennis Pratt from Porcupine Freedom Festival. So if you missed that, you can grab that online, including the after show version, the uncensored after show that we did last night as well. Both of those are together in our podcast from last night. So if you're subscribing to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, you would have just gotten like a 3.5 hour long podcast instead of our normal 2 hour or 2.5 hour length.
I saw it today, and if you're going to listen to it, that's the way to do it. If you're going to watch the video, it's fractured across two videos.
You have to get two videos. Yeah.
The other way, you have to watch the radio show part of it, and then the video part or the podcast part. Just watch the podcast, get all at once. It's really good. It's really worth listening to.
That's the longest interview we've ever done.
Yeah, we sat here talking with Dennis Pratt, you, me, and Bonnie for 4.5 hours.
I suspect
that's how much energy there was.
I suspect no one in the... Yeah, he told me, he thanked me for having him on last night. He said he actually got a full night's sleep because he was exhausted after. It was like the first time he's gotten a full night's sleep in a while because he's been working really hard.
I apologized to him afterwards. Like, as soon as I left here, I apologized because I was like, man, I don't know that I was, but I feel like I was too antagonistic. I have nothing but respect for Dennis, and he does this amazing job of putting PorcFest together. And I was like, I'm afraid none of that came across in the episode. So I also said I would mention it tonight.
Yeah, and I think you said that toward the end. I think you gave him props and appreciation, and I think that you did. But it doesn't hurt to say it again.
Yeah, sure.
But I suspect no one had their minds changed that was in a studio. But last night, maybe some people listening were influenced one way or another.
Constance, who is running the Porcupine Freedom Festival on the ground, once it's actually started. Dennis organizes it apparently, but once it's actually started, someone else manages it, I guess. She's mentioned today that she might call into the show, or she's interested in calling into the show because she has her own reasons for why RFK should be there and all this other stuff. And
happy to hear him.
She also wants to talk about that's what I said. She also wants to talk about the woman issue at PorcFest. Like, where are all the women? And this is, of course, something that I noticed like 4 years ago, and I tried to start.
I always thought there were a fair amount of women at PorcFest. What's the problem?
There are and there aren't. There's a lot of the men who come are married, and the women come with them because of that. But like, as far as single women or women who aren't attached to a partner,
less likely that
those don't seem to really exist. And Ladies Night Out a number of years ago, ForkFest was designed to fix that. And of course it didn't work. No. That was also the first year that I was like deep in Free Talk Live and other stuff that caused me to get raided and arrested by the FBI like 7 months after that. So I was very, very busy that year and didn't put energy into Ladies Night Out that it really warranted. It was basically just a place for people to go and buy wine, which, was great.
Indeed.
But I didn't make any progress toward getting women there. But it was very clear that it was necessary, because when I brought this idea up to people, one of the first responses that I got was, "Hey, yeah, you're right. We can get some prostitutes up here." And like, wait,
God.
Yeah, right. Like, when I say we should get women at PorcFest, your mind should not immediately go to prostitutes. And I think the fact that it does,
and therein
is where
lies the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the attempt to fix that went nothing, and apparently this is an issue that she's also noticed and she wants to do something about. I don't know. I didn't ask her what that was. I was like, you're welcome to call. So maybe she will.
I don't think we introduced ourselves. I'm Ian.
Aria?
And Mark.
Mark's with us from a remote location, and of course,
Florida.
The phones are open if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. Do want to say thanks to Dash right up front, because I forgot last night during our show. We were just so into the interview that we were doing. So I want to remind you that Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash. It's digital cash. Dash is a cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending, and it has been one of the longest-running cryptos out there. In fact, 2014 is when Dash started. It had a different name at the time. They rebranded later on as Digital Cash. It's widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get. It's easy to use Dash. And the fees make it something you actually want to use, unlike Bitcoin, where the fees, last time I looked, I think it was last week, were in the range of $2 per transaction for the median transaction. And that's kind of like your typical transaction. So very, very expensive to use Bitcoin. Dash, on the other hand, less than 1 cent per transaction. It's fast. It works. It's protected from the 51% attack by their chain locks technology. And you definitely need to look into Dash if you've never done so. In fact, the price, lots of crypto prices have been dipping over the last couple days with the attacks against the cryptocurrency exchanges, which we're going to talk about here shortly. I
also have an article from Gensler. Well, it's not from Gensler, but it's about Gensler and how he's like, look, we don't need more digital currency. We have the USD.
Yeah, I've got that one too. We'll talk about that. So you can go grab up a Dash. I think today it dropped below $40. Wow. For one Dash. So big thanks to the Dash.
Good time to buy.
What do you need all this cryptocurrency for? They're making plenty of dollars.
That's basically what he's saying. Big thanks to the Dash DAO, their decentralized autonomous organization, the first one in the world, by the way, for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. You can visit dash.org to learn about Dash. That is dash.org. So, yeah, the big news yesterday that we mentioned at the top of the show, but obviously didn't get into, was that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission criminal enterprise, is now going after Binance, which is the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Don't be confused here, folks, because we were talking about a very similar story maybe like a month or a month and a half ago or something, which was a different federal regulatory agency suing Binance.
Why was the CFTC suing them? Because I don't remember now.
The CFTC, the so-called Commodities Futures Trading Commission, had filed a lawsuit against Binance like 2 months ago or something like that, and basically alleging you guys are, you didn't have a license and you're trading commodities or something without our permission.
It was the futures that they were upset about.
Yeah.
And I don't remember why.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
And so they went after him, and that's that was a big deal because Binance is the largest cryptocurrency exchange on the planet by volume, and it dwarfs everything else. They're huge.
Yeah.
And
Coinbase is second.
Coinbase, I don't know. I don't think Coinbase is second globally, but Coinbase is the biggest in the United States.
Okay.
When you don't include Binance, Coinbase would be second in the U.S. And now the news has dropped that the SEC has sued Binance as of yesterday. So they've got two civil suits, accusing them of all kinds of, quote, wrongdoing.
And remember, people, Binance, not an American company.
No, but they do have a U.S. division. They have Binance.us, so they do have a subsidiary that's based in the United States. And, of course, they've been named in the lawsuit from the SEC. And then one day later, after they sued Binance, the SEC has finally announced they are now suing Coinbase. We knew they were going to.
Oh, yeah, they served them the Wells
notice. So the way the SEC apparently does things is they have to tell you they're going to sue you in advance of actually filing the lawsuit, and that's what the Wells notice is for. That came out a couple months ago or something like that.
And that's the most bureaucratic nonsense ever. Yeah. Here's your notice to let you know that I'm giving you a notice about a notice that is coming.
So we'll start with the Binance story here. The SEC is alleging that Binance has, of course, violated the securities law, which, by the way, was written in the 1930s.
Yep.
Okay.
Completely irrelevant to today.
Right. What we're talking about here is something that they could not have possibly ever imagined cryptocurrency or
before the invention
even a computer.
Of the internet,
right? Before
the invention of debit cards.
Yeah.
Any of that.
Maybe they had checks back in 1930, but that's about it. So the world's largest crypto exchange, according to Reuters, and its CEO Changpeng Zhao, operated a web of deception, according to the SEC, that included artificially inflating its trading volumes and diverting customer assets, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission lawsuit.
No, that can't be possible. They can't inflate their trading volume, except with Monero. They could lie about how much Monero they're trading, but everything else is on the blockchain and publicly available.
No. What's on the blockchain is their holdings. They do not have the transactions on the blockchain because those are all internal in a database.
Oh, that's right.
When you make an exchange on a campaign, for listeners or campaign exchange, when you exchange on an exchange, you've deposited your cryptocurrency to this centralized control, this place where you're not in control of your crypto, right? This violates one of the main rules of cryptocurrency, which is not your keys, not your coins. If you don't have control of your cryptocurrency, somebody else does. And if they go out of business, somebody hacks them.
Or loan it to someone like SBF did.
Right. Or the government steals it, it's gone. And you'll probably never see pennies on the dollar or whatever. You probably won't ever get it back. So never put your crypto in an exchange for longer than you absolutely have to. Use decentralized exchanges if you can, because then you still contain, in most cases, control over the coins. But when you hand it to
decentralized exchanges are largely sort of experimental at this point, right?
Decentralized exchanges, you say?
Yes.
Well,
everything is experimental, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees out there, right? Like, there's always the possibility that code is broken, that there may be bugs or whatever in code. There could be exploits. So unless you're a programmer and you can go in and actually look at the code and validate it yourself, then you still don't really know. Further, you never really know anyway, because even if the place is open source, you still can't be sure they're running the proper code on their server.
But I mean, AirSwap existed before I even moved to New Hampshire from Mississippi. So that's running on what, 6.5, 7 years, maybe 8? And that's a decentralized exchange. It's one of the earliest decentralized exchanges.
Do they still exist?
Yeah, they do, but they're like...
Is it like an Ethereum only thing?
It is Ethereum only.
Okay,
so that was their big hurdle, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, they exist, and so like, how experimental is it if we could say, no, look, it's been going on for at least 8 years now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the top Ethereum or token exchange is Uniswap, and it's very, very popular, and they compete with the centralized exchanges as far as their volumes are concerned. So I mean, presumably these are organizations who've been vetted properly. There's a lot of people with eyes on the code, and I would say at this point we know that decentralized exchanges are, I would say, in phase 2 or whatever. Like they're not in beta test anymore. Not all of them. I mean, there still are some newer technologies that's
a good way to put it.
It's getting safer. But that said, you still don't want to put something up that you can't afford to lose. That's a general rule with this whole crypto experiment. So anyway,
let me. I got another question then.
Yeah, of course.
If this is everyday and common, why haven't the other exchanges, the major exchanges, adopted the decentralized aspect of it?
Well, because they wouldn't make as much money.
And they also like control. It's the same reason like the Free State Project won't become a decentralized autonomous organization, right? Because they could, but it would mean losing control over things.
Yeah, their model is to make money on every transaction, and that does happen in a decentralized exchange. But in a decentralized exchange, it's the users of the exchange who are providing the liquidity for the exchange, and they get the fees. Now, in the case of a centralized exchange, whenever an exchange happens, the centralized exchange collects 100% of the fees, and the users get nothing.
It's also worth mentioning that if you, a user, deposit 1 Bitcoin into your centralized exchange, you're like, I want to sell some of that for Ethereum or for Litecoin or whatever, then they don't actually have to pay any transaction fee to send that Bitcoin to a wallet and to send the Litecoin to your wallet. All they have to do is go into their spreadsheet and deduct the Bitcoin and add the amount of Litecoin. So they don't have to pay the actual transaction fee that would exist in a decentralized exchange.
You're saying the centralized exchange doesn't pay transaction fees for every swap.
Right, because there's not actually a blockchain transaction.
Whereas on a decentralized exchange, yes, you're right, every swap does cost whatever the network fees
And so
cost.
by not having those, it's just money that they're not paying that, otherwise
But they also have to
users
pay for a lot of overhead. They've got a lot of staff. They got a lot of customer service. They got all these compliance departments. There's a big cost to running these centralized exchanges, and they have governments shoving down their throats. So what the good side of this SEC continuing attack, like they're going after the biggest of the big now. They went after the smaller guys like Bittrex and Kraken, and they've hit hard on the lower.
God, it's so crazy to think of Kraken as one of the lower exchanges.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're right, but
they've gone after those guys, and they've gotten their way, and now they're going after the biggest of the big, Binance and Coinbase. And the good news, I think, about this is people don't change in general. Like we were talking last night about how people are generally reticent to change. Like it was hard to get free staters to leave Facebook and join Telegram, for instance, just to get the Porcupine Freedom Festival attendees to change a chat app. And it's hard to get people to change financial habits too. Like if you're used to going to centralized exchanges, that's where the volume is. That's where all the users are. That's where it's easy to get swaps done with low fees. So that's where people go. But if it's going to start freezing accounts and going out of business and potentially being seized by the government, you're going to start seeing more people looking at aspects like decentralized exchanges as an alternative, looking at things like Uniswap for tokens, or now for what they call level 1 cryptocurrencies, which is like the base level Bitcoin Cash, Atom, some of these bigger ones, Binance Smart Chain, there's Tether. A lot of these bigger named cryptos are on Thorchain, for instance. And then there's the new Maya protocol, which has forked. They took the Thorchain code and they did what they're calling a friendly fork, where they're working.
Good. Competition's great.
It's competition, but it's also friendly. They're working with Thorchain because there's still a limit. In the same way that a centralized exchange has a limit to the amount of people that can be on their servers, there's a limit on a decentralized exchange to the amount of people that can use that blockchain that is used to make the swaps. So knowing that with the idea being that Thorchain, which is the world's kind of first real decentralized exchange where you can swap these level 1 coins.
That's the amazing development. I'm not sure I ever expected that to actually come to fruition because it's such a technologically complicated thing.
And they pulled it off, and it's been in operation now for a few years. And so the Maya protocol people took that and they said, well, we want to do the same thing, except change it a little bit. We're going to take the code, make some changes to it, and they're supposedly going to be putting Dash into the Maya protocol thing pretty soon, which we'll let you know when that happens. But these are definitely some really interesting technologies because you can go to one of these exchanges, these decentralized exchanges. You do not have to identify yourself. There's no way to identify yourself.
Some of them you can sign up with just an email address.
There's not even a sign up.
Which can be a throwaway.
There's not even that. It's just
really? Okay.
You just generate a wallet, and then that's it.
Awesome.
You're in.
Yeah, the only real issue with any of this is that you can't take your USD to these decentralized exchanges and turn it into cryptocurrency.
Yep.
And that's one of the main reasons that the SEC is going, and the CFTC and the U.S. government in general is going after these exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. They want to make sure that, hey, here's the exact way that people can get into cryptocurrency. This way we can control it.
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shut down what you call the on-ramps and the off-ramps. That's why they targeted the people like the Crypto 6, like us, going after the what they call peer-to-peer exchangers with criminal charges. They're going after Binance and Coinbase with civil cases. But they're, quote-unquote, charging them. But if they're found responsible, they only have to pay millions of dollars. They're not – Changpeng Zhao is not going to go – to prison in this particular case.
And to give people an idea of how bad it is, Local Bitcoins, one of the longest-running peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchanges, has closed.
They closed their doors. Yep, that's
Local
right. After more than a
Bitcoins
decade.
Has closed.
Yeah. After a decade, 11 years or something in operation. So it's an all-out attack on cryptocurrency, and it's really sad for people in the United States. I think it was Coinbase that pointed out in their response video they made today to the lawsuit that there's over 1 million jobs that could leave the United States if they, if this attack on the cryptocurrency industry continues, and there's no reason to think it's going to stop.
And I think that this is sort of the unsung aspect of this that many Americans really don't understand is that whether or not Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency becomes the world reserve currency. And by the way, the United States government has already said that a cryptocurrency is going to become the world reserve currency. So the belief that a cryptocurrency, the CBDC.
That's not a cryptocurrency.
All right. A digital currency.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think they're probably wrong. I mean, they can't predict the future any more than we can.
The dollar's already a digital currency.
Yeah, but it's also not really the world's reserve currency right now.
Yeah,
and it's steadily
still
losing that place.
It's losing its place.
It's losing that place, but I mean, the guy at the top of the hill is still at the top of the hill until he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And admittedly, somebody's else is going to be at the top of the hill, but I can't tell you who that's going to be.
Right.
Maybe it's going to be Bitcoin.
That's too
Maybe
early
it's
to
going to
say.
be the ruble. I have no idea. Well, I have an idea, I could make a prediction.
And there may be a
that
BRICS
prediction-
currency still to come. There's still talk about BRICS, which of course is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. There's something like 24 countries
I think
that are
Saudi
trying.
Arabia and other OPEC nations are getting in on it.
They're trying to join. I don't think there's been an announcement on who they're letting in yet or what, but there's a big rush by a bunch of other countries in the world to join BRICS. They're already 25% of the world's GDP and 50% of the world's population or something like that. It's crazy. I saw some statistics about them recently.
And what's uniting these countries is the literal desire to not have the USD as the reserve currency.
That's one of them.
That's the main thing they want to accomplish here.
Right. And I don't know how well they're going to do with that. But ultimately, there's going to be a change in this sphere, and something's going to happen. So, will it be Bitcoin? I don't know whether the answer to that or not, but the United States driving away cryptocurrency, and that's what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way to look at this. Driving away cryptocurrency is aiding and abetting its own enemies. Is all that would have to happen right now is for Russia to say, you know what, that sounds like a good idea. We'll go ahead and we'll take the Bitcoin as our thing, or some other nation, or the BRICS, or whatever, to take on Bitcoin, and then suddenly the United States overnight is no longer the world leader, and that would be the big change. And it's the Biden administration's fault. Not to say that the Trump administration was doing anything great, but the Biden administration has presided over a witch hunt in the area of cryptocurrency, and we as Americans should be embrace this technology.
Well, it's very likely that Joe Biden and the executive branch can't really do anything about it.
No, they could just fire the SEC guy.
Well, not necessarily.
No.
Jeffrey Tucker did a speech on this exact topic last year at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. There was something passed in 1860 or 1870 that basically it gave tenure to some of these bureaucrats, where the president could not simply fire them. And I don't remember what the name of that legislation was at the moment, but Jeffrey Tucker did a speech on it last year at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I'm sure people out there can find it if they want to, but it isn't necessarily true that the president can just fire people.
Well, I think you're taking the belief that it's all very civilized in Washington, D.C., whereas I will take the belief that people who cross the NSA and the CIA wake up dead.
Okay. I don't know that has anything to do with what I said, but okay.
The CIA, who actually runs the government, not Joe Biden, wanted the SEC chairman gone. He wouldn't draw another breath.
Okay, fair enough. But so don't blame the Biden administration for the situation then, right?
I suppose you could send a message to the CIA by getting rid of the Biden administration.
I think this would be happening with or without the Biden administration, and I think it would be happening without this one guy, Gary Gensler. Because, again, I don't know who the guy is that's running the CFTC, but it ain't Gary Gensler. That's somebody else. Right?
Fair point.
The government does not like competition, and crypto is competition they can't control.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Thousands of people in Ukraine have been evacuated after a dam was destroyed. Kiev and Moscow blame each other for what United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres calls a humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe. Jody Jacobs reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
Antonio Guterres says Tuesday's attack is another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He says more than 16,000 people have already lost their homes, and clean drinking water supplies are now also at risk to thousands more. Guterres says the UN and its humanitarian partners are rushing in to support the government of Ukraine with drinking water and water purification tablets and other critical supplies.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has officially launched his bid for the White House. The one-time Trump ally turned harsh critic is just the latest Republican to jump into the race. Tony Waterman reports.
This is the second time Christie will be chasing the White House. He ran in 2016 but dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. That support, though, has now soured, and Christie says the former president is unfit to serve after inciting the January 6 attacks. But Christie's sharp criticism has so far paid little dividends. A recent Monmouth poll found Christie is the least liked among Republican voters.
The PGA Tour and LIV Golf have agreed to merge, ending the rivalry that's engulfed the golf world over the past year. The deal means that the Saudi government, LIV's main backer, will have a major stake in the new business entity. US correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Since its launch in late 2021, the Saudi-backed LIV Golf Circuit created a bitter schism in the golf world, drawing top players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson away from the PGA Tour, resulting in a flurry of legal action. Now, they will join forces, together with the PGA's European affiliate, the DP World Tour. Professional golfers appeared to have been blindsided by the news, with some taking to social media to express their surprise at the shocking turn of events. Previously, the PGA's top official Jay Monahan had criticized LIV as an attempt for Saudi Arabia to buy the game of golf. Now he will become the chief executive at the new, collectively owned, for-profit entity. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
Donald Trump has protested his innocence by unleashing a torrent of social media posts, lambasting the US Department of Justice a day after his lawyers met with DOJ officials amid an investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents. On his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed he did nothing wrong, despite the FBI finding dozens of sensitive files at his Mar-a-Lago estate last summer. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can bring up whatever you want. That is the point here on Free Talk Live. It's Ian, Aria, and Mark joining you. And you can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. There's a lot of features that are waiting for you there, including our social media platform at social.freetalklive.com. You can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners and some of the hosts on our Mastodon server, which, for those of you not familiar, Mastodon is an open source, decentralized alternative to the big tech media platforms like Twitter and Facebook. We run this server, so we set the rules, and we don't have very many of those. So you got a lot more freedom to express yourself. Just don't be spamming and don't be snitching in our server. Those are basically the two rules. And, try to play nice, but you don't have to, because you can always just block somebody you don't like, or they can block you. And that's the appropriate way to deal with somebody you don't care for.
It is indeed.
So check it out over at social.freetalklive.com. Unfortunately, the government doesn't work the same way. They use violence and the threat of violence against the people they don't care for, and they are now attacking Binance and Coinbase, the world's some of the world's largest crypto exchanges. Binance, the world's largest by quite a large margin. Coinbase, one of the largest, certainly one of the largest, if not second largest in the United States. Or it's the largest if you talk about the ones based in the United States. Coinbase would be the number one there. So they're going after the heavy hitters here with big lawsuits alleging in the case of Binance that Binance had violated securities law by allegedly artificially inflating its trading volumes and diverting customer assets with a web of deception. The agency sued Binance and its founder Changpeng Zhao for failing to restrict U.S. customers from its platform and misleading investors about its market surveillance controls, as well as for operating an unregistered securities exchange. The SEC's complaint filed in federal court in D.C. also alleged, according to Reuters, that Binance and Zhao secretly control customers' assets, allowing them to commingle and divert customer funds. Well,
That's
of
not
course.
really secret.
Yeah, of course. That's how Bitcoin exchanges operate. You take in the Bitcoin or whatever other crypto we're talking about from the customers. You pool them all into the same place, and then you simply track in a database what each customer is supposed to have. That's the efficient way to do things. No one has ever represented that your Bitcoin is separate from anyone else. In fact, you can trace it on the blockchain. When you make a deposit into one of these crypto exchanges, they give you a unique address to deposit, but as soon as it hits that deposit address, they move it into a large address that is their holding wallet.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how they get. That's one of the ways that you can easily identify the crypto exchanges. Some of the blockchain explorers out there, for listeners that don't know, blockchain is the distributed ledger technology that backs the cryptocurrencies. And most of them are public, with the exception of the privacy coins like Monero. So you can just go in there, and some of them will label addresses, because normally when you just look at an address, you don't know whose it is. But these exchanges know which addresses Binance is using, because they don't change that often. And so if your coins get put into a wallet that then jumps into a Binance wallet right after that, then they know that the initial deposit wallet was also owned by Binance.
See, I assumed it was all just like an HD wallet sort of thing, which is most crypto wallets, if you send to a wallet, it will automatically generate you a new wallet that is completely connected to the initial wallet, but it has a different public address, and it's done this way to help, keep your privacy and stuff like that. I assumed that was what was going on here, was just spontaneously generating you an address, which it does, but that this was corresponding to their private address.
Yeah,
that would have been my assumption.
That may be true. I don't know what the tech is behind the scenes, but it all ends up in the same wallet, basically. So anyway, they say that it's an elaborate scheme to evade U.S. federal securities laws. The SEC alleged that from September of 2019...
No, they literally cannot scheme to do something that they don't know how to do. The SEC has not made it clear. They specifically said they would not make it clear how to become compliant, because then people would know how to skirt those regulations. So you can't then accuse the SEC of skirting those regulations if you haven't written them because you're worried that someone will figure out how to skirt them.
You can't accuse Binance of skirting them.
What did I say?
The SEC.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
But they also at the same time say the opposite, which is that all you have to do is just come on in and register. Come on in, have a seat on the couch. We'll sit down. We'll have a chat. You'll be all squared away.
I think the SEC overplayed their hand on this one, man. I think this is one that Coinbase and Binance are going to win, because they can prove that they literally tried to do this. And the SEC was like, nah, try again.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument. I guess we'll see about that. And we're still waiting to hear on the SEC lawsuit against Ripple, which has been in play for years now. And they're just waiting on the judge to issue the ruling in that case. So all the arguments have been made, and this is one of the big landmark cases, I guess. So we're still waiting on that. But they lost, or the SEC won the case against Library, LBRY.com, where they claimed that Library was a so-called security. So, I mean...
And to be fair, I don't have much faith in the federal court system. However, if there's any decency and reason and sense of morality and logic in this system, I know. There may be a tiny shred, then there's just no way the SEC could win this, especially the one against Coinbase, but probably the one against Binance as well. It's just utter nonsense.
Complaint said that in September 2019 through June of 2022, Sigma Chain, a trading firm owned and controlled by Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, engaged in wash trading that artificially inflated the trading volume of crypto asset securities on the Binance.us platform.
Mark is muted.
Oh, sorry about that, Mark. My bad. Now you're not muted.
Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead.
I'm curious. One of the things that I'm wondering here is the mixing funds thing. Is this just exactly what banks do? I mean, it's not like banks, if they're saying it's bad, then it's bad that banks do it too. And I'm just curious, if this is evil and wrong and Americans need to be protected from it, then why does the government get to do it?
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I mean, it's
like, when the Democrats will say, but Social Security is not a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
But then they can't say why it's not a Ponzi scheme. And the answer is always, well, because it's the government and they can just print more money.
Correct.
Well, technically, the government doesn't do that. The U.S. banking system and the banks are supposedly separate from the government. Now, I know in real life that's not how it works. But that's one of their
have
arguments.
A deal, though, right?
Yeah.
Like they have a special deal. The Federal Reserve is not the government, quote unquote, but they work with the government to sell them, to buy all their debt, basically.
They have the legal right to counterfeit the USD. That's ultimately what it all comes down to, is that banks that are part of the Federal Reserve System have the legal authority to counterfeit the USD.
But it's not counterfeiting when they do it. In the same way that it's not murder when the cops kill you.
Yep.
And it's not, commingling funds when the banks do it, right? So, anyway.
Fun little game they had. And I got into an argument with someone, not really an online argument because I try not to engage in these anymore, but someone said something to the effect of, no, we have to work within the system, in order to make any progress. Libertarians have to, get elected on the sense of, look, no, man. You're playing a game that is rigged against you, where the person controlling the outcome of the game is heavily invested in winning the game, and they are controlling the rules that allow them to win the game. The only thing you can do is stop playing the game. It's rigged, man, and it's rigged. They're playing with loaded dice, and you know that. It's stupid to continue playing that game that is designed for you to lose.
Now, wait a minute. You've run for sheriff.
Yeah, but not because I wanted to go in there and be sheriff and change things, right?
But you would have.
Probably, but that would have been a fluke if I had gotten elected, right? Like someone who wants to go in as a sheriff and I'm not saying don't get elected, especially for local offices. We were talking about the presidential election in particular in this case, and that's the most futile one.
Okay, I'll agree with you there.
Some of the others, state reps here in New Hampshire, they can have a profound impact.
I mean, because I would love it if we could just walk away from the system and it would just destroy itself, but that's not going to happen.
No, I think a more direct approach to destroying the system is necessary, something like cryptocurrency, civil disobedience, these sorts of things. I think those are the most effective ways of destroying the system rather than, trying to run for president or whatever.
I don't think that cryptocurrency is attempting to destroy the system. I think cryptocurrency is opting out of the system.
But if we don't participate, then the system is destroyed.
Well, not if you, I, and Ian don't participate. If you, I, and Ian don't participate, we have simply opted out. And we don't get to control, sadly, even all the people that listen to Free Talk Live, the 250,000 people that will listen to Free Talk Live this week will not think to themselves, well, I wonder what Mark wants us to do. So I just think of things that I can do, and then I recommend those things to my listener in the hopes that they can do the same thing. And my recommendation would be use cryptocurrency as much as you can in order to opt out of a system that is rigged against you. Forget about all the other extra things about it. It's rigged to that you have to give your wealth whenever they feel like it to the bankers and the big corporations, but I repeat myself, that's what this whole thing's about. Now, when you use that currency, I would go so far as to say you are playing a game that increases your convenience, but increases your chance of having it devalued at the same time. Whereas if you use cryptocurrency, it's a little more inconvenient, but your value will be preserved. So good luck playing this game, but understand that you are playing a game. That whenever you move voluntarily from USD to cryptocurrency, I'm talking about the major ones here, then you have a better chance of preserving your wealth. And there's still a chance that somehow they could come and, blow a hole in the bottom of this ship. I don't know. And you've got to kind of, you got to spread things out. And that's what I do.
Sure. I mean, obviously, right. But the point of the don't play the game analogy is that it's simple and easy to understand. when you add all these things to it and add all these technicalities, it takes 3 minutes to explain instead of 10 seconds.
Well, the system is going to fail.
Yeah,
okay? It's designed to fail.
They always do.
That's what centralized bank money is designed to do, right? Like every one of them in history has failed. Might have taken some time. Might have taken generations. And in fact, this one's been going for 50 years, roughly, I think, at this point, without any backing. And then, it's been 100-plus years since the Federal Reserve started. So, maybe we're getting to the end of this particular run, but you can look back in history. This is what central banks do. They print money until it's devalued to the point where people are sick of it, and then a new scam comes in to take its place. So
and people fall for it just like the Venezuelans allow their government to just chop off zeros every once in a while. The Americans.
Well, that's the thing. They don't have another option until cryptocurrency, and that's why I kind of agree with Mark on this one. In that, by getting out of the U.S. dollar and not getting into other fiat, but not into other government monies, but going into things like gold backs, gold and silver, cryptocurrency, these other alternatives where you can actually control your funds. That is a way of opting out of a system that will fail. Will that hasten its failure? I think that's a good question. I think that if there were massive opt-outs, I think that might hasten its failure. But at this rate, we're not seeing massive opt-outs. You're not going to likely see people making these decisions until things start to heat up. So there was like some polling recently that was done about, if hyperinflation hits, what will you do?
You'll starve. That's what you'll do. If you're not prepared, you will starve.
People said they would buy gold or whatever at that point.
It will be too late.
That's the thing. It's too late, right? I mean, it's never too late, but you should get it before the hyperinflation hits rather than when it hits. But that's the thing. This goes back to what we were talking about before. People are slow to change. They only make those changes when life really pushes them into it. So until it starts to get to double-digit inflation or 20% inflation, people aren't going to think about getting out of the dollar. There has to be something to motivate them.
Just to protect yourself. You don't have to get out in a massive way. Just, good Lord, $10 a week in gold or silver could literally keep you and your family alive in the near future.
And this is, but what we have to understand is that there's different types of folks. So I think the number is currently 60% of Americans cannot put their hands on $1,500. One paycheck.
Right. Yeah, because about 60% are living paycheck to paycheck.
One paycheck separates Americans from financial hardship. 60% of Americans from financial hardship. Yep. So now we're just dealing with 40% of the population. So that means 40% of the population. Now, I don't know what the percentage of them that is 2 paychecks from financial hardship, but some percentage, and my guess is that percentage is, well, let's say 5 paychecks from financial hardship. That there is probably another 30%. So like 10% of Americans.
That's interesting. I wonder if there's ever been a survey on that.
Yeah, I don't know, because most people are just like they're just gobstopped at the first.
I suspect I suspect the gap is a lot bigger, in that like you're either living paycheck to paycheck, or you probably have a year's worth of money saved up that you could subsist on. I suspect it goes straight from no money saved to a decent cushion.
We're all just speculating here, so
we don't know. I don't know, and
it'd be interesting to see something with a tier breakdown.
Because like if you can save $20 out of each paycheck, and you've been working for 20 years or whatever, then that's a decent nest egg.
See, the thing is, I don't believe that there's anybody out there. There's very few people out there living paycheck to paycheck that still couldn't find $20 if they really wanted to, right? Because how many of the
even
paycheck
a crackhead
to paycheck
can find money
That's
for
what
crack.
I'm saying. How much of the paycheck to paycheck people are spending a good chunk of their paycheck on beer at the end of the week?
Sure.
Or cigarettes, or junk food at McDonald's, whatever it is. That there's probably areas are going to Starbucks.
You're not always going to get warning that you need that extra money that you blow every paycheck. So you could, whatever that financial hardship is, could hit on day 12 of a 14-day pay period.
And that's true, but it's a mindset issue, right? they know that something could come up, and they don't know what it is, but they know that they could get a flat tire, or someone could siphon all the gas out of their vehicle, and they literally don't put any money back. Well, that's a major thing, right? They don't put even $20 aside. They will spend every single penny that they have, and then just hope that nothing is going to come up. That's the issue.
So if you want to comment on all this, feel free to weigh in. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about the SEC attacking Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange.
I got one more comment on the idea of living paycheck to paycheck. Money isn't freedom. Money is money, and that's different than freedom. But having money, being able to survive X number of paychecks into the future, that's kind of the definition of wealth. Mm-hmm. So wealth is the ability to live, however wealthy you are, is how long can you live under current conditions, without having to work, without having to make more money. And I'll admit, this isn't the easiest scenario to put together. Like holding dollars doesn't work, especially right now when they're devaluing them at somewhere between 5 and 10%. But you got to hold something to hold your wealth. I recommend a diverse portfolio because something's probably going to work, whether it's gold or bonds or Bitcoin or whatever it is. I recommend, that sort of thing. But you are sacrificing your freedom. You're giving it to them. They, them, and those. Those mamma jammas out there. You're giving your freedom to them, whether it's your boss, the big corporation you work for, whether it's the bankers that you have all kinds of loans to, the credit card companies, again, bankers, whoever it is that you're giving your freedom to, that's what you're choosing to do when you carry long-term debt and when you do these things. I made this decision long ago, long before I was holding a great deal of Bitcoin, a lot of value in Bitcoin or anything like that. I made the decision I was going to get out of debt. And we did. We did it on a middle-class income. You can do it.
All right. Mark is not a financial advisor. That is not financial advice, but that's just what he would do in his service.
What do you think is questionable about it?
I don't know. Just making a disclaimer.
Yep.
So the number here is 603.
It's legally important.
Yeah, 603-283-6160. Given how these people are, they will sue at the drop of a hat. Anyway, the Binance attack continues here from Yahoo Finance and Reuters. Binance, according to Gary Gensler, the SEC chairman, the top attack dog over there.
And to give you, this dude is affecting an entire industry that, again, employs millions of people, or at least a million-ish people in the United States. No one elected this guy. That's the definition of a tyranny, right? We live in this society where this one guy can affect the lives of a million people, not to mention all the people who use cryptocurrency and the Jeremy Kauffman at Library and all of the people at Ripple. Yep. Just millions upon millions of people having their lives directly impacted, sometimes destroyed by this guy. Completely unelected, completely unaccountable. You can't replace this guy in 2024.
Even if you survive the attack, you will be poorer as a result. Yep. You will, in Library's case, they're going to go out of business. The Library Corporation is done for.
And the SEC won't be poorer. They're the government. They cannot run out of money.
That's right. So they have nothing at risk, and you have everything at risk. You will lose something, even if you win, quote unquote, the lawsuit.
And no one wins when the government comes after you.
You will still pay for the attorneys. You'll still pay for the time. You'll still lose all that time, as Jeremy Kauffman pointed out from Library. He has been unable to develop the software that he created, that he helped to develop, that he loves. You can't focus on doing anything for your business when you're focused on defending against an attack from the government, and they know this. They know that even if they lose, as you predicted, you hope they're going to lose the Coinbase and the Binance attacks. It's no skin off the SEC's back, and it's a huge distraction to the cryptocurrency industry. And more importantly, it's an intimidation factor, because there's a lot of companies out there who have cut and run over what the SEC has already done. Whether or not they're going to win or not, these companies are like, I don't want to be involved in this.
I can't say I blame them.
They're like, I'm out. I'm not going to hire 15 attorneys. We'll just close business in the United States and go international, and that's what Bittrex is doing. But of course,
there's people out there with brilliant ideas that would thrive and make the economy better, or make the world better. But they're looking around, they're like, no, the SEC would just sue me into oblivion.
So Binance, according to SEC Chairman Gary Gensler, he says, we allege that Zhao and Binance entities engaged in an extensive web of deception, conflicts of interest, lack of disclosure, and calculated evasion of the law. Binance didn't immediately respond in a tweet.
I calculate that you're an immoral monster.
Zhao said
if you have any sense of decency, you would hang yourself tonight.
Would issue a response once it has reviewed the complaint. Their currency, which is the fourth in the world by market size, dropped more than 5% on the news. Bitcoin also dropped. Every crypto essentially dropped on the news that
Bitcoin's
Binance
back.
Was being sued. Yeah, and it came back. Then it came back after they sued
always
Coinbase.
does.
So you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, every day I open Google and it's like, Bitcoin's on the decline, Bitcoin's crashing or whatever, and you look at the price and it's like still exactly where it's at, or pretty much exactly where it's at, hovering around the $27,000 mark. And that's what happened recently. Like, Bitcoin's crashing, it's dying again. And then it's right back to where it was 24 hours later.
They do a quick recap here on the CFTC, Commodities Futures Trading Commission attack from March against Binance, where they allege that Binance was a legal exchange and a sham compliance program. And then apparently the Justice Department is also investigating Binance for suspected money laundering and sanctions violations.
Remember when the banks got caught laundering all kinds of money for the drug cartels?
Drug dealers. Yeah, I remember that.
And the United States and British governments did nothing?
No, I think Wells Fargo had to pay like $4 billion in fines.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But
I didn't hear about that part.
They just washed their hands of it.
Gensler is making it clear here when he's like, look, we don't need any more cryptocurrencies. We don't need a world reserve currency. We have the USD.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. He's making it very, very clear that all of his actions here, all of the government's actions, the SEC, the CFTC, they're all directed toward one exact thing, and that's propping up the USD and protecting it from the competition posed by cryptocurrency. That's his motivation here.
Yep.
And that is so unspeakably evil. That's why I say he should hang himself. He's propping up the most evil regime in the history of humanity.
That's his job.
Yes.
The number here is 603-283-6160. So they went after Binance yesterday. Today the news dropped they're going after Coinbase. As you pointed out, Gensler's out there saying, hey, we don't need any of these cryptos. All we need is the dollar and the other world currencies from the other governments of the world. That's good enough, right? More coming up here. Hour number 2 is next.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Thousands of people in Ukraine have been evacuated after a dam was destroyed. Kiev and Moscow blame each other for what United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls a humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe. Jody Jacobs reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
Antonio Guterres says Tuesday's attack is another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He says more than 16,000 people have already lost their homes, and clean drinking water supplies are now also at risk to thousands more. Guterres says the UN and its humanitarian partners are rushing in to support the government of Ukraine with drinking water and water purification tablets and other critical supplies.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has officially launched his bid for the White House. The one-time Trump ally turned harsh critic is just the latest Republican to jump into the race. Tony Waterman reports.
This is the second time Christie will be chasing the White House. He ran in 2016 but dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. That support, though, has now soured, and Christie says the former president is unfit to serve after inciting the January 6 attacks. But Christie's sharp criticism has so far paid little dividends. A recent Monmouth poll found Christie is the least liked among Republican voters.
The PGA Tour and Live Golf have agreed to merge, ending the rivalry that's engulfed the golf world over the past year. The deal means that the Saudi government, Liv's main backer, will have a major stake in the new business entity. US correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Since its launch in late 2021, the Saudi-backed Live Golf Circuit created a bitter schism in the golf world, drawing top players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson away from the PGA Tour, resulting in a flurry of legal action. Now, they will join forces, together with the PGA's European affiliate, the DP World Tour. Professional golfers appeared to have been blindsided by the news, with some taking to social media to express their surprise at the shocking turn of events. Previously, the PGA's top official Jay Monahan had criticized Liv as an attempt for Saudi Arabia to buy the game of golf. Now he will become the chief executive at the new, collectively owned for-profit entity. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
Donald Trump has protested his innocence by unleashing a torrent of social media posts, lambasting the US Department of Justice a day after his lawyers met with DOJ officials amid an investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents. On his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed he did nothing wrong, despite the FBI finding dozens of sensitive files at his Mar-a-Lago estate last summer. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in detail today at fears that plans by the US and Britain to supply nuclear-powered submarines to Australia might pierce the world's nuclear non-proliferation agreements. When the AUKUS Pact first came together last year around that submarine sale to Australia, China immediately objected to it, arguing that Australia, a non-nuclear state, should not be supplied with submarines powered by nuclear materials that could be diverted into a weapons program. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency is grappling with how to regulate the issue. Carla Ann Robbins, with America's Council on Foreign Relations, lays out the problem.
The NPT does not ban non-nuclear weapon states from building or operating nuclear-powered ships, even for military use. But until now, only the 5 NPT-recognized nuclear powers, the US, Russia, China, Britain, and France, have had nuclear submarines. No one believes there's a danger that the Australians can or would divert the reactor's highly enriched uranium fuel. But many experts have warned that the US, UK, and Australia are setting a dangerous precedent, and states that might want to pursue a secret nuclear weapons program could say they want nuclear-powered submarines and then divert the fuel for their own secret weapons program.
The head of the IAEA has acknowledged the scale of the problem by calling the submarine sale, brokered by Washington and London, a game-changer for non-proliferation safeguards. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reports.
House of Representatives Bill 323, the IHOP should stay open all night so we can get some Pancakes Act. This bill was submitted for immediate review very late last night under the provisions of the National Emergency Legislation Act.
Can we dim the lights? It's really bright.
H.R. 323 would, by federal order, require all IHOP restaurants to, quote, remain open 24 hours effective right this minute, even if some manager has to get out of bed and drive down here to start making some pancakes.
Well, we stand by the bill.
Right. We wrote it, apparently.
This bill would also require the federal government pay to build a tram or monorail or whatever connecting the Black Sheep Pub on North Capitol Street to all IHOP restaurants.
I think
in the
we made
city.
some illustrations of
The bill
that.
gives the estimated cost of the tram as probably not even that much. You are wasting my time and the time of this
Excuse
committee.
me, I gotta go.
What? Congressman, this committee is still in session. You can't...
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program here. Phones are open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Aria, and Mark joining you here tonight. If you want to help out the Crypto 6 case, I am the last one to be facing sentencing, and we are still accepting letters to the judge. You can go to letters.freetalklive.com to get an address there and add some tips, some suggestions on how you might want to structure a letter. It's something that might have an effect. It's hard to be particularly optimistic considering that Arya ended up with 18 months. I was hoping that you would get time served and, you know, some probation. So the idea that he's going to go less on me than he did you seems pretty ridiculous. But yeah, it still doesn't hurt.
Not impossible.
It doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to.
I mean, there are more reasons like that. You're more engaged in public service and the radio show and things like that. That I don't know.
But I also have a criminal record, and
for civil disobedience.
Still, they don't care about that. You know, it's just,
okay.
He violated the law, therefore bad. But if you want to help me out, if I've done something of value to you in your life, then please, you can go to letters.freetalklive.com and you can write a letter to the judge in the Crypto 6 case. As we continue here, we've been talking about the SEC and its continuing attacks against the cryptocurrency industry, which is part of a larger federal government-wide attack against the cryptocurrency industry. The Crypto 6, Arya, me, Nobody, and three of our other friends who were arrested in 2021 over what they call peer-to-peer sales. So there's like the FBI, quote-unquote, Justice Department ongoing attacks against peer-to-peer sellers. We're not the only ones. We're
right.
6 in a long line of peer-to-peer people that have been attacked. And then, of course, the SEC going after these companies, the exchanges, the developers. You got the CFTC now bringing a lawsuit against Binance. And then today, the SEC announced, I guess they filed it. They had already announced they were going to attack Coinbase a couple of months ago. And then the case has been now filed, apparently, against Coinbase, according to Reuters. The largest U.S. cryptocurrency platform has been accused of operating illegally because it failed to register as an exchange, which, of course, there's no way to do.
That's all they're being charged with, not registering? Because
Oh,
that was my charge.
I suspect it's more than that here. The lawsuit is the SEC's second in 2 days, as we discussed in the first hour.
They have got to chill out. It could not possibly be clearer that they're trying to strangle the cryptocurrency industry. I don't know why Congress and the president aren't using whatever means are at their disposal to rein this stuff in until they can get a handle on it.
Well, presumably
this
they're
guy's
doing
crazy.
it at their behest.
But maybe, but he was also brought in recently and like grilled by some of the members of Congress. Like
that's just a show.
This seems to be completely out of control, though. It's like this guy's just going crazy and suing everything and everyone.
He's doing it at somebody's behest. Somebody's told him to, right? Like
we live in a world where it's very it's very executive heavy. And this is what the founders were concerned with. They had just come from an executive-heavy system where they had a king and that sort of thing. And, Jefferson's saying that, that power tends to concentrate. And this is true within government too, right? It's a lot easier for the executive, the one who wields the sword, to have power rather than the legislative branch. The legislative branch has never, to my knowledge, made one law about cryptocurrency.
Never.
They haven't said a thing about cryptocurrency.
Yep.
There is no guidance from the people, the representatives of the people, on cryptocurrency. This is just the guy with the sword, or a whole bunch of guys with swords, running amok, enforcing laws from 100 years ago and calling it justice.
Yep, that's literally what's going on. It's absolutely outrageous, and unfortunately, there's no defense against this, because it's like, how do you apply these rules when you have no idea how they apply, when Coinbase has pointed out, and I am not a Coinbase fan.
No,
okay?
I hate Coinbase.
I'm not a Binance fan either. I don't care for any of these centralized exchanges, but I'm still on their side on this because the government's even worse. But the problem, of course, with Coinbase is from the beginning they've been trying to be the government's bed buddy. They've been trying to cozy up to them and say, oh, just tell us what to do. We're here to help. We just want to do it.
They literally wanted to write the regulations. And
they did.
They made this clear. They wanted to form this sort of cartel with themselves and Kraken and some other major exchanges so they could write out the rules. That they wanted to call it a white book or something like that.
No. You're talking about the White Hat group or whatever. That was years ago. That was before Kraken even existed. That was
it was Coinbase was behind it still.
They were.
And what they wanted to do, that's just one example in a long line of things they've done where they made it clear that they want to use the government as a weapon to keep themselves from having competition.
Yeah, they've complained in their statements, and I haven't read the full statement they've released, but I've read their previous ones about this, and that they'd gone to the SEC, they'd asked for the guidance, they'd asked for the rules, what do we got to do, tell us what to do, and there was no answer from the SEC. But yet, whenever the SEC goes after one of these companies, they always issue a statement saying, hey, look, all you got to do is come in and talk to us. We'll take care of it. And that's not possible. And it's not just Coinbase who said this.
The SEC refused to meet with Coinbase last year when Coinbase sent some representatives to Washington. Yep. Everyone but the SEC met with them.
As antithetical as it is to libertarian ideas, I think that the case of places like Coinbase and Binance is stronger than it is for, say, folks like you and Aria, where you guys are like, we have rights, we were born with them, and we will operate as though that is true. We have the right to buy things and sell things, and we will operate within our rights. Whereas these people went hat in hand and said, hey, we just want to know what to do. I know you don't have any rules, so we'll write the rules for you. And still, the SEC says that they violated the rules somehow. There are no rules to violate.
Yeah, that they're literally trying to shoehorn cryptocurrency into, like you said, 90-plus-year-old rules here. So the civil cases...
And even if they're not using that one for the criminal rulings, right? They're using the anti-money laundering thing that was written after 9/11, which is from 2001. 22-year-old. The most recent regulation they have that they're applying to cryptocurrency is more than 20 years old.
Yep.
That's insane.
The cases are...
The iPhone wasn't even invented then.
That's right.
That's how far back we're talking about.
The cases are an attack against the industry, which Gensler has labeled the Wild West today, and has undermined investor trust in U.S. capital markets, he claims. Quote, the whole business model is built on a non-compliance with the U.S. securities laws, and we're asking them to come into compliance. There's that word again.
Compliance?
Asking. When I ask you to do something for me, Aria, it doesn't come with a suggestion that I'm going to point a gun at you if you say no. If I ask
Thank
you to
goodness.
come in and substitute for me on a Thursday night or something like that, it doesn't mean that I'm going to kidnap your dog if you say no. It's just an ask.
Right.
The government loves to use these terms, and a lot of the times the media uses the term, even when the government's never asking for anything, they're threatening.
Lapdog.
The lapdog media, absolutely. They're not asking, okay? When they take you to court and they're trying to bankrupt you and trying to make you pay millions of dollars to do what they quote-unquote ask, that's proof that they're not just asking, they're telling. Yeah. They're demanding, and they're threatening you. And if you don't do what they say, they may put you in a prison cell.
Well, it's the difference between a leader and a ruler, right? Where they're pretending like they're leaders, like they're not violent rulers who are looking to use violence against people.
No,
but
a leader sets an example.
Right.
A leader shows the way, and then people follow voluntarily. That's not what's going on here.
No, and that will never be what goes on with the government, because the government doesn't have to lead. They don't have to provide a good reason. They don't have to provide justification. They don't have to lead by example, because they have the guns pointed at our heads saying, obey or we'll hurt you. You don't need to be a good person. You don't need to be an example when you have violence upon which you can rely.
Crypto companies say the SEC's rules are unclear and the agency is overreaching and trying to regulate them. Coinbase suffered about $1.28 billion in customer outflows following the lawsuit, according to initial estimates from a data firm called Nansen. So I guess they're watching their Coinbase wallets and seeing how much is going out. Paul Grewal, the general counsel for Coinbase, in a statement said the company will continue operating as usual and has, quote, demonstrated commitment to compliance, unquote. 10 U.S. states also accused Coinbase of securities law violations concerning its staking rewards program, which is what we thought that the SEC was going to go after. In its complaint filed in Manhattan federal court, the SEC said Coinbase has since at least 2019 made billions of dollars by operating as a middleman on crypto transactions while evading disclosure requirements meant to protect investors.
What are those disclosure requirements?
God knows.
The staking thing is fascinating to me, because that's almost brilliant if you can get away with it as a cryptocurrency exchange. Hey, buy your crypto from us, and then it's like a proof of stake coin, like Blackcoin or whatever.
Right.
And then you just hold these customers' funds for them because you're a centralized exchange, but you don't just hold them, you stake them as well. So
Correct.
you're literally making, interest effectively off of your customers' money.
Yep, and you give them a cut, and you keep a cut for the exchange.
And this all seems completely fine to me. I don't have an issue with it, but it's absolutely brilliant. There was a very brief period in my life where I staked Blackcoin. I ended up not doing it because my internet, I lived in Mississippi, so my internet wasn't as reliable as it should have been for, staking cryptocurrency. But the idea is that you have this cryptocurrency that you're not using, and you use it to secure the network by staking it. It's not important what that means on a technical level, but it's like you're putting up your money out there, and that lets people know that, hey, this money exists, it's usable, it's stable, and it's backed up by this money that Aria or the listener, whoever, put out there. And for doing that, you'll receive like one black coin a year or one coin, whatever it is.
3%, 10%, 6%,
It's almost literally free money, except you can't use it, so there is a cost, and that it's not liquid, it's tied up in this one thing. But it's a really good method of securing a blockchain network, as far as I can tell.
Well, the SEC is now calling that a security.
Yeah,
and that's why they went after Kraken.
Well, everything's a security to them.
That's right. Even Binance USD, which is a stable coin, they're saying is a security.
But you can't make money off of a stable coin.
I know.
Right. A stable coin should be, in theory, backed $1 for $1.
That's right.
So there's no way to make money on it. You're just putting $1 up, and then somebody would then come and claim that dollar in the future.
I don't know what their argument is. Maybe the argument is that, well, in theory,
you got the guns.
Well, that is obviously it. But maybe in theory, if Binance was being dishonest and not actually backing the Binance USD with actual dollars or dollar equivalents,
well, that would just make them like a bank.
Then it could go down in value, and therefore customers could lose their value. So security, but it's just absolutely ridiculous. They're saying that the Coinbase exchange traded at least 13 crypto assets that the SEC considers to be securities, and that should have been registered, including Solana, Cardano, and Polygon.
They also mentioned Dash on that list.
Yeah, it was a long list.
Because they're throwing darts at a dartboard with random cryptocurrencies labeled on it. So, yep, that one's.
It's whatever they want.
Yeah, that's the only justification I can see for this, is they're just drawing cryptocurrency names out of a hat and saying this one's a security, that one's a security.
Founded in 2012, Coinbase recently served more than 108 million customers and ended March with 130 billion of customer crypto assets and funds on its balance sheet. So it is a big business. In the staking rewards program, which has about 3.5 million customers, Coinbase pools crypto assets and uses them to support activity on the blockchain and then provides rewards. The SEC lawsuit seeks civil fines. And so they're bringing up the staking rewards program, but they didn't say specifically here that the lawsuit is targeting it. I presume that means that the lawsuit is targeting the staking program, but I have not actually I think it's a very poorly written article here because it's not clear the allegations that the SEC is making. But
give chat PGT or whatever a little while to get better at these things, Ian.
What is? Oh, you're suggesting they had ChatGPT write the article?
Oh, they don't employ. No one's hired a journalist in a year.
No, it's all freelance.
You simply can't ignore the rules because you don't like them, said the SEC enforcement chief Gurbir Grewal.
We don't know the rules, man.
Right.
Coinbase has been clear about this. If you tell them the rules, they will obey them. But you won't tell them the rules. You just say, you broke them, and there's this secret list of rules that you have hidden in your back office that you're accusing people of breaking, and the courts, for whatever godless reason, are going along with this.
Yeah, I wish I had a better breakdown of what the suit is actually alleging. Maybe we can find that later. But this Gary Gensler appeared apparently on CNBC recently. The story from blockworks.co.
The fact that any media organization allows government employees on to explain themselves is just absolutely disgusting. Your job is to hold these people accountable, not give them a microphone.
Yeah, well, that's the way it was supposed to be, but it didn't turn out that way. It turns out that media companies, large and small, will always try to curry favor with government agencies because they won't talk to them otherwise. And they feel like this even happens with like just a local talk station where they'll have the police chief will come in for an hour on Fridays or once a month or something like that. And it's like, or ask the mayor, that kind of thing. And if they don't kowtow to those people, if they don't give them softball questions, then they won't get the mayor back.
You don't need the mayor then, do you?
I agree.
Instead, make an issue about the fact that the mayor won't come on the show unless he only has softball questions. What is this guy hiding? What is he scared of if he won't talk to the press unless he's agreed in advance what they will ask?
I don't disagree with what you guys are saying. I mean, what you're saying is correct. There is another aspect to it. That other aspect is that everything's so red team, blue team out there that if you as a journalist, try to hold a seated politician's feet to the fire, then you are a brain-numbed libtard or a conservative droid or whatever the hell these terminologies are that they say to people that are intended to stop conversation and hold people responsible. Right now, it's you see DeSantis and Trump going back and forth, and whatever you've got to say about the two candidates, DeSantis is undeniably a more conservative candidate than Trump is. But the Trumpers are acting like...
Yeah, this is all easy to fix, right? I mean, yes, if you're a media organization and you criticize Trump, people will call you a libtard or whatever. But the solution to this is really easy, and it's to end our obsession with social media. That sort of nonsense, it only really came about with the rise of social media, and it only happens on social media. I've never seen in person someone else call someone else a libtard because they didn't like Donald Trump. I've only ever seen that sort of toxic behavior on social media.
I guess I've seen some in emails, but yeah, I get your point. But again, I like to have solutions for people that I can implement myself in my own life. And all I can do is kind of get off social media or stick on Free Talk Live's social media or use social media that has some higher level of responsibility than others. Whatever my choice is at any given moment, that's all I can do. People are going to do what they do, and my presence doesn't appear. I mean, I've been off of Facebook for a full year.
Congrats.
And no one, I don't mean I have been since 365 days ago, but I have taken a full year break from Facebook before, And no one said, "Hey, welcome back, Mark." No one noticed my absence. Therefore, my absence could have had no effect no quantifiable effect.
Maybe not. It depends on how you're trying to measure it. But like Facebook is very much on the decline. Its user base is on the decline. Its usage is on the decline. The company as a whole is on the decline.
Good riddance.
So you not using it does contribute to that.
I see the same thing happening on Instagram. Basically, people want to turn it into Facebook.
It's the same company.
They want to make but the users want to be able to argue about politics.
Oh God,
they want to do that.
Jeez.
And it's not as good of a system for that.
No.
It's not as good of a platform for it, but that's still what they want.
That's all social media is.
That's annoying.
It's people arguing with one another. It's toxic. It's horrible. I've pretty much completely stopped scrolling social media at all.
Wow.
And my life has never been better, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I try to pay some attention to these things that are happening just in case they could affect me, but all of the crap about people fighting over trans people or fighting over DeSantis or Trump or, calling everyone groomers and just all the drama,
annoying.
It's been completely removed from my life.
Nice.
And that could be the case for everyone if you just stopped scrolling Twitter and Facebook and started, interacting with people directly.
Or read a book or something like that.
I've also been doing a lot more reading lately.
So I did, by the way, I found the actual press release here from the SEC regarding Coinbase. And yes, the article did not mention it, but it's right here. Coinbase is, quote, charged with operating as an unregistered securities exchange, broker, and clearing agency, and also charged for the unregistered offer and sale of securities in connection with its staking as a service program. So yes, they did go after Coinbase staking, which is what we predicted that they were going to do after they went after Kraken for it. And the difference between the two is Kraken said, all right, here's $30 million. We'll shut it down for U.S. users. You win. Here you go. See ya.
That's the stakes that these people are playing at, where they're like, $30 million, fine, cut the check, cost of doing business.
They didn't want, Kraken said, and Kraken is, of the U.S.-based exchanges, they seem to be the most libertarian, and by that I mean the guy that runs the place is an unabashed libertarian.
Oh, he is, and he says some hardcore stuff.
He does. I got to give him credit. I mean, they still follow all the stupid rules. They still jump through all the dumb government hoops, but that's what they got to do to not have the FBI raid their offices.
It's like Elon Musk said about Twitter and the requests that they get for government censorship or whatever. It's like, what do you want us to do, guys? We either shut down or we comply.
Yeah, or they murder you and shoot your dog. So, in this case, we knew that was going to happen. But what Kraken essentially said was, look, we don't know how much this is going to cost us if we go to court, but there's a good chance it's going to be more than $30 million. So here you go. And they just walked away from it, and they shut down their staking as a service program. Coinbase made a comment at that time, and they said, well, at Coinbase, we do staking differently. Our staking service is special, and we will vigorously defend. And so good for them. I mean, I'm glad to see that they're going to fight it out.
I mean, this is sort of what happens when you get libertarians who want to play ball with the system because they care more about money than they do about principles, and that system ultimately turns against them, where some part of them is like, no, we have to fight this, right? That's ingrained in them, even though they wanted to exploit the system and use it for their own benefit. These guys, they still were at one point libertarians.
The Coinbase people? I don't know.
I thought they were. Brian Armstrong?
Is he? I have no idea.
I thought he was.
Is he?
Well, I think that it depends on what you guys call libertarian. But Brian Armstrong is a libertarian. I don't think he is necessarily a voluntarist or an anarcho-capitalist or whatever terminology one wishes to use.
But he sold out and decided he wanted to exploit the system for his own benefit, for the benefit of his company. And I would say that's immoral, but it didn't necessarily stop him from being a libertarian. And now that libertarian core of resisting and arguing and saying, no, I'm not going to comply with this, is burgeoning to the surface.
Yep, I am glad to see them fighting it. How it's going to go, only time will tell, and that may be years before this thing snakes its way through the slow federal courts. But we got more coming up, including the comments from Gensler about why it is we don't need any of these cryptocurrencies. We've got the dollar. And I know you had that story too, so we'll get to it coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid. This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card, and the sign-up bonus, enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Thousands of people in Ukraine have been evacuated after a dam was destroyed. Kiev and Moscow blame each other for what United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls a humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe. Jody Jacobs reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
Antonio Guterres says Tuesday's attack is another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He says more than 16,000 people have already lost their homes, and clean drinking water supplies are now also at risk to thousands more. Guterres says the UN and its humanitarian partners are rushing in to support the government of Ukraine with drinking water and water purification tablets and other critical supplies.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has officially launched his bid for the White House. The one-time Trump ally turned harsh critic is just the latest Republican to jump into the race. Tony Waterman reports.
This is the second time Christie will be chasing the White House. He ran in 2016 but dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. That support, though, has now soured, and Christie says the former president is unfit to serve after inciting the January 6 attacks. But Christie's sharp criticism has so far paid little dividends. A recent Monmouth poll found Christie is the least liked among Republican voters.
The PGA Tour and LIV Golf have agreed to merge, ending the rivalry that's engulfed the golf world over the past year. The deal means that the Saudi government, LIV's main backer, will have a major stake in the new business entity. US correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Since its launch in late 2021, the Saudi-backed LIV Golf Circuit created a bitter schism in the golf world, drawing top players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson away from the PGA Tour, resulting in a flurry of legal action. Now, they will join forces, together with the PGA's European affiliate, the DP World Tour. Professional golfers appeared to have been blindsided by the news, with some taking to social media to express their surprise at the shocking turn of events. Previously, the PGA's top official Jay Monahan had criticized LIV as an attempt for Saudi Arabia to buy the game of golf. Now he will become the chief executive at the new, collectively owned, for-profit entity. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
Donald Trump has protested his innocence by unleashing a torrent of social media posts, lambasting the US Department of Justice a day after his lawyers met with DOJ officials amid an investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents. On his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed he did nothing wrong, despite the FBI finding dozens of sensitive files at his Mar-a-Lago estate last summer. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. All you gotta do is dial in at 603-283-6160. And joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Mark.
And Mark is here with us as well from a remote location in Florida. But also a different Mark. I want to let you know about Mark Warden and the crew over at Porcupine Real Estate. We've talked a lot about the migration of liberty-minded people coming up here to New Hampshire. And if you're thinking about joining it, then great. That's fantastic. If you love liberty, if you're an actual libertarian, a voluntarist, a liberty-loving anarchist, you should be here. This is the libertarian homeland as Jeremy Kaufman from Library has put it. But you got to find a home if you're going to be in the homeland. So Porcupine Real Estate can help you with that. Just go to move.freetalklive.com, and you can get signed up for their upcoming webinars on various different topics, everything from gun freedom to medical freedom, political freedom victories, best practices for moving to the Free State and finding housing. They're going to cover those things. And some of those things they've already covered. You can go and look at their past webinars by going to their YouTube channel, Porcupine Real Estate. You can watch them there. But it's better to attend an upcoming one so you can ask your own questions and get help directly from the experts on moving to New Hampshire as a liberty-minded activist or somebody that just loves freedom. Go to move.freetalklive.com. That's our web URL, but it takes you to the Porcupine Real Estate site on the sign-up page. And once again, it's free to attend these webinars, and they're very, very informative. So once again, that's move.freetalklive.com. Let's go to somebody who's here in New Hampshire. He's Dave Ridley, and we'll continue the discussion about the SEC here in moments. Ridley from RidleyReport.com. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, something happened back around January, or no, I guess around November, that just kind of passed me by, and I don't know. Do you guys know much about the death of Sharon Clark? I think she was a New Hampshire liberty activist or Free Stater.
Oh, is this the young woman?
I believe she was 33, according to legacy.org.
Yeah. I heard something about her. She had moved up to Grafton or something like that, right? And then I don't know much else.
Legacy.com, I mean.
Yeah, usually when people move to Grafton, they kind of disappear, and so I don't know.
Why is that?
It's just because it's way out in the middle of the woods, and it just seems to be the kind of place where people go to not be seen. You know,
fair enough.
But I don't know. Is that where she was living?
Legacy.com says, quote, Clark Sharon Ann, 33, late of Grafton, NH, was found deceased in her home on November 20th, 2022, unquote. There really isn't a lot of other useful information that I see in that post.
Why do you ask about it?
Well, I think to me it is, or at least should be, a big deal whenever a Free Stater dies. There aren't that many of us. The post doesn't say much. There is another post on, the town of Grafton had something up about her on January 4th of 2022, I guess about 10 months before she died. It indicated that she was trying to build a tiny house or get permission to build a tiny house.
Right.
And someone was trying to stop her.
Oh, man. Yeah, somebody said something about a Sharon recently in a chat room. I'm sorry, and then they linked to her or whatever, and I apologize. I just don't know much about her. You know,
geez, I guess this is the second suspicious death in Grafton surrounding sort of zoning and building disputes, right?
Oh, right.
There was that activist John Connelly who
John Connell. Yeah.
Thank you. Who was very early on and like a brother to many of us.
He was the founder of the Peaceful Assembly Church in Grafton, which had an actual church building that caught fire while he was in it. And he perished presumably due to smoke inhalation, but it's not, I don't know what the autopsy ended up showing in that case. Very, very sad.
Awful.
Very, very sad case. It
was all sort of secretive. They wouldn't tell us what the autopsy said.
He was also one of the inspirations for the Shire Free Church, his church, the Peaceful Assembly Church, and his message of forgiveness. He was a real advocate for forgiveness, and really went a long way, I think, to inspire a lot of people. So yeah, I know a lot about John and his story, but not so much about this young woman. Obviously, very, very young, in her early 30s, to just be found dead in her home. You have to wonder what went on there.
Legacy.com also has a picture of her, and there were also at least two other deaths of Free Staters in Grafton since 2004. They were kind of old age deaths. Bob Hull and Lloyd Danforth. Hull was not that old though, and I would have expected to still be talking to him 10 years from now. So it is kind of disturbing, people like to say that Grafton is not a good, doesn't speak well for us as liberty activists, and there have been other incidents, and it just, I lived there for about 6 months. I liked it; seemed okay, but it seemed like there's like a curse on the place or something. It's kind of big love.
I mean, people die, and the more free staters that come here, the more often they're going to die. Yep. So it's just sort of
also,
expected.
Partly it's just an indication of the large number of free staters that are there. I think.
I remember one guy, he had a rock fall on him. He was working in his backyard or whatever. There was like a big boulder or something that he was working underneath, and it shifted or something, and he got crushed to death. And then there was another guy in Winchester that I think he had a heart attack or something while he was driving a fairly large truck and just went off the road and crashed the truck and perished because of that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a long list, sadly, of people who have died over the years, and then we've had thousands of people move. So, some small percentage of them are going to go in an unfortunate manner, sadly.
My best guess is there are about 60 probably free staters that live in Grafton, which is a town of roughly 1,200. We ran some statistics, maybe 7 years ago. I just put out a request saying, hey, someone look into this. Do you think we're dying at an unusual rate, or our young free staters are dying quicker than they should be? Is there something we should be? Is there some conspiracy going on here? But the statistics that someone else ran indicated that we do have a pretty normal death rate for the number of people that we have. So
you estimate 60 free staters in Grafton? You said that's 1,200?
I would guess so. Yeah, it was about 40 last time I really counted, and that was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
We don't have that many in Keene.
Yeah, we don't even have that many here.
Like 20 times that size.
Well, they don't all show themselves. They don't all come out to different events or whatever. I did find somebody reporting the death.
Well, I think that Grafton is unequivocally has more free staters than Keene. I mean, Keene has lost many free staters throughout the year.
Well, Grafton lost a bunch too because they just went there and disappeared. But Sharon Clark, according to David Freeman, who posted about this, she lived off the grid apparently without electricity, and it is believed, he said, that carbon monoxide poisoning was what ended her life. So it's possible.
Gotta get a carbon monoxide. They cost $5, people.
Yeah, it's possible she didn't have a detector or something like that and went peacefully, if that was the case. And then, of course, there's also Greg Serby, who was found in a ditch, if I recall correctly, in, I don't know if it was Nashua, but somewhere in that area. He was long an attendee of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, a well-known activist. I believe he was a Free Stater. I don't think he was a native. And he is probably the most mysterious death of all of them, because no one's really sure how he ended up where he ended up. Like, there's never been a real good explanation for that, and he was...
I mean, it's never good if someone's, like, found in a ditch, right?
Yeah, he was not known to be into any kind of, like, illegal culture or, dealing drugs or something like that. So that's always been a mystery. Did you ever hear anything about that one, Ridley?
Well, the thing that I know about that one, which was kind of I guess, something I knew that other people didn't know, was I knew him fairly well back in the the 2010 era, and I think in 2008 roughly, he took me aside. I was at a Murphy's Tap Room, and I've called in about this before and posted about it, but we were at a Tap Room Tuesday meeting, I think, and in roughly 2008, he took me aside and he said, "Listen, I have been ordered to attend an FBI interview or lose my security clearance." He works somewhere with a security clearance. And I've been ordered not to tell anyone about it, but I'm telling you in case anything happens to me.
Okay.
So if anything ever happens to me, you go public with the fact that I was questioned by the FBI.
How long was this before he turned up dead?
Well, many years. Okay. It was probably, it would have been about 12 or 13 years before. But anyway, Then he took me aside, a few weeks later and said, "Okay, I had the interview. Here's how it went." And so anyway, in 2021, when he died, I went ahead and just wrote down everything that I remembered from these conversations. But I couldn't remember whether or not I had maybe interviewed him on camera about it, just to keep the thing lying around in case anything happened to him. But I don't think I did. I went back through my archives. I never could find such an interview, so I must not have conducted one. It's so long ago, but I don't remember conducting one, and my archives indicate that I didn't. I just haven't happened to go on memory. But if you go to forum.shiresociety.com, then you can find the post where I wrote down everything I could think of in 2021 after I heard about his death.
Well, if this is one reason why that we need to keep recruiting people to move to New Hampshire, and the fact is we're going to lose some people over time. And as we've talked about, a lot of people in the United States are not replacing themselves. There's people. I think the average family is having like 1.7 or 1.8 kids.
I'm not bringing
something
any
like
children to the Free State Project.
Me neither.
So-
Me neither. So we definitely need to keep recruiting people who have the liberty mindset to come here and get active. So Ridley, anything else you want to share tonight?
Well, just to be clear with Greg, I do not have any suspicions about the FBI on this. I do not think that their conversation with him was linked to his death. It was so many years in between.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going through by rote what he asked me to do if he ever died.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Ridley, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Ricky's on the line in Pennsylvania. You're on Free Talk Live. Ricky.
Thank you there, Brother Ian, Brother Mark, Sister Aria. Good
What's on your
evening.
mind?
Well, this past Saturday, you posed the question to me, if it were to be arranged, would I go on a date with Sarah from New Mexico? And at the time I said, no, I don't know. But I gave it some thought,
Okay.
I gave it some thought.
What was your answer at the time? Because I didn't hear that.
I think he said no.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've given it some thought, and the answer is yes, and I wanted to say why.
Okay.
Yeah, because, I heard Sarah's call from the very beginning. I know plenty about Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm thinking
I didn't
about
listen
it.
Saturday, so
how
did this come up?
I don't remember.
Did Sarah announce
He
that
just
she's newly
posed the
single?
question, that's all, Aria.
And I know, but why?
I don't
Right?
remember. I think they were
Probably
both.
going back to 2018.
I think he brought her up or something. It was somehow she got brought up.
Oh, God. 2017, he was saying that he was trying to kind of hook us up. I remember on Skype, and that's how we ended up talking together.
Do you think you could
on
save
the
her?
air.
Do you think that if you dated, you could change her from being a communist?
Well, I think I'd have a good impact on her. And you got the Confederate. you
So
got
to speak.
communists. I understand her. I'm not going to try to change her, but I'll give her some ideas. And here's what I'm thinking. I know she loves the buses. So I could spring.
You could go on a bus ride together.
Trip. Huh?
You could go on a bus ride with her.
Well, no, I can't.
the city
I can't
bus.
have the buses here. I'm banned for life. Now, if I may continue,
Just go down to New Mexico.
I'm figuring, I could, with a little conversation, some good food, we bum around. Pennsylvania is known for their friendliness, so I think that'll be good for her. Plus, she'll be with me, and I'm a gentleman with honor. If she's not cool with my studio apartment, I'll spring for her.
Yeah, she's in a townhouse. She's that's kind of a downgrade for her because right now she's in a townhouse, Ricky. So I don't know.
Well, all I need is, I don't give a crap. I'll just get a hotel room, I got the money. Because she's a lifelong SSI. She ain't got nothing, So that's fine. But here's what I'm thinking.
I think you've given this way more thought than Ian ever anticipated when he asked the
I
question.
want to know how many people Ian has successfully managed to matchmake for. How many couples
I think
exist
it'll be
right
good
now
for her.
that Ian put together?
There actually was somebody who came up to me. I think it was at PorkFest, or no, it might have been Liberty Forum, who thanked me for connecting somehow this person with their wife, and that they listened to Free Talk Live. I don't even remember how it happened, but they basically thanked me for having a kid together or something. And it was kind of weird, but I was like,
here's the
okay,
only
cool.
hitch. Here's the only hitch, Ian. Because I'm banned for life, I'd be like picking her up at the bus terminal on a cab because I use cabs. I don't know how she'd feel about that.
Yeah, just get a nice cab or something, a limo.
Yeah, hopefully
solve the
she's cool
problem.
with that. And everything would be on Ricky from the Commonwealth. It'd be like vacation. And there's no better
All right.
place for her to visit because Pennsylvania is known for their friendliness.
It's
Believe
too
me,
bad
I
she's
know.
not on hold right now. It's a
It
damn
sounds like
shame.
Ricky wants this, right?
It does sound like he's really put some thought
I
into
do
this.
because
did, yes.
I've gone out with all kinds of different girls in my life, and I think it'll be good for Sarah.
All right,
Well,
I'll ask her, Ricky, for you
guy.
when she calls in tonight. We'll find out what she says about it because she does have a.
Well, here's one thing I'll tell you. Just so forget that. If she's not comfortable, I can get us a nice hotel room, That's cool. But one thing I'll tell you
Isn't
what
that
I
a little
look like.
presumptuous? I mean,
A bit, yeah.
that you're presuming
We're
that
all
this-
adults here, Ian. Let's be serious. Come
It
on.
would have 2 beds in it. I'm a gentleman.
There you go. All right.
Now, here's the thing, though. One thing I'll tell you
Never
what I look like, just so she knows. And I've been
Oh,
told
my God.
this recently. I've been told that I look like, in the face, I look like early Neil Diamond. When I'm clean shaven like I am now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you have a beard, long hair
Well,
last
yeah,
time?
I had a Van Dyke back then. I had my Club Masters on in that picture from Skype,
What are you
I got my
weighing in
hair
at these
cut
days?
now.
What's your height and weight?
Oh, well, I need to lose a couple pounds. I should be 185. I'm like 222. I got to lose. I'll have weight loss by then, because I'm working on that. I mean, I lost some height because I got curvature of the spine, unfortunately.
Okay.
So now I'm down to 5'8" from 5'10". I'm a little disappointed.
Okay. All right. What are you doing to how are you going to lose the weight? Are you working out? What are you doing?
Just cutting down, and I'm going to be toning up and working out. I remember when
cutting
I was
down.
in jail,
Are you cutting down on what?
I was like a monster. I was doing 500 push-ups, sit-ups.
What are you cutting down? What are you cutting down on? Are you cutting down on alcohol, sweets?
No, just like on carbs and things like that, my snacks. And
That's
it'll
not
go
crazy
off pretty
here,
quick.
Ian.
I lost some already. And I'm going to look good. I mean, I think it'll be really a good experience for her. And
are you willing to buy her plane tickets so she can fly up to see you?
Well, I was going to just give her the Greyhound.
Okay, there you go. That's an option. There you go. All right, it's romantic.
She does like the bus.
She does. That's what he's.
Going to be on Ricky from the Commonwealth.
He knows. He knows his target. All right, Ricky. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. We'll let her know and we'll see what she says. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully she doesn't, freak out because I know all about it, but she never listens to the damn show. She says
that's true. Yeah, she doesn't know you from Adam. That's a good point. Thanks for the call, Ricky. I appreciate it.
I was not prepared for any of that.
Let's continue here. We got this guy, our gal, anonymous caller. You're on Free Talk.
Here's what I'm going to say is that you don't have any idea until you ask.
That's true. You got to ask. You're never going to get a yes unless you ask the question. Anonymous, you're on the line here.
What's up? How you guys doing, Mark, Ian, Aria?
What's on your mind tonight?
Hey.
It was Bobby from Florida.
Hey, dude.
I'm tired of Ricky the Commonwealth. You know what's going on, but Aria, he knows that Sarah is mine. I don't know why he's creeping up on my stuff and coming into my territory when I've been trying to talk to Sarah, I don't know, for 6 or 7 years, and now he's stepping up, coming to me. He knows that's mine. Because
if it's been 6 or 7 years, it sounds like somebody else ought to take a shot.
I mean, this is not fair. Why can't I get the hookup? You guys hooking up for Ricky. I'm cooler than Ricky. I like Aria. I don't dead name Aria. And then he gets all the love, guys. I mean, the show's kicking tonight. Show is kicking tonight. But, what about the hookup with Sarah? What about me, guys?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's too bad that Sarah doesn't have an email address. Otherwise, she could just have all kinds of potential male suitors in her inbox. But she doesn't even know how to work an email.
I wish she would have an OnlyFans or something like that. I mean, I'd be right on it. No.
Thanks.
I was talking about free state.
For $5, Ian will have an OnlyFans for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
Bobby.
I heard I listened to all the drama. I know all the stuff. I can't stand that Matrix chat room. Everybody in there is a troll. They hate on everybody.
Yeah.
Bonnie's trying in there and trying to talk, and then everybody's ganging up on her, and then if you talk to anybody else, it's just a troll fest in that Matrix.
It is. It always has been. Though. I mean, that's always been true. Pre Matrix, it was still a troll fest in the Discord. Pre Discord, it was a troll fest in the IRC room. Okay, so as long as we've had a chat room, it's been a troll zone. That's just reality.
The Discord was better though. The Discord, you guys got to admit, was better.
No,
way better than that Matrix.
Not really.
I enjoyed.
Yeah,
I
liked it.
I thought it was a lot funner. But with all that said, I love the show.
The Matrix is better because with the Matrix, you can create your own room. And so if you go to chat.freetalklive.com, well, I mean, that's an important thing. If you go to chat.freetalk, hold on, Bobby. If you go to chat.freetalklive.com, there's step-by-step instructions there as to how to get on the server. You do have to, jump through a few hoops. You got to sign up for an account and all that. But it is better because if you are sick and tired of the on-air now chat, then just go roll up your own chat room. And then you're the administrator of that chat room, and it doesn't matter what trolls come in there. If you don't want that troll in there, you can just ban them out the chat room or whatever. Now, of course, they'd probably just get a new account and come back in if they really want to. But you could also make your chat room private if you wanted, and then only invite the people you want into the private room. And that would make it a lot easier to have control over who can come in. So if you want to make a public room, you can do that. If you want to make a private room, you can do that. If you want it encrypted, it can be encrypted, or it can be completely unencrypted and searchable. So you actually have total control over how that's done. On the Discord, we were the ones who had to set what the rooms were. It was all top down. And I think that's one of the most key differences between them. Is Discord slick? Yeah, they got some slick features. It's corporate. It's, their audio chats better than what they have on Matrix. It's got its perks, but ultimately, if they don't like you, if they get a hair up their butt, then they're going to shut you down, and that's what they did to our server. So I got, and we knew that was going to probably happen at some point. So what else, Bobby?
Well, I do miss that Discord, but I love this show, and I know I talked to you before, and now I'm going to keep calling, and I love listening. I miss nobody. He hasn't been in for a couple of weeks.
He's expected to come back in a couple of weeks. So he's supposed to be back in New Hampshire on the 14th. For listeners that don't know, his mother had a stroke. She's in her 90s. She had a stroke, and she did recover, as I understand it, from that. I've not heard any further bad news. So the last I heard was good news. And so, he's spending some time with the folks out there, and then he's coming back this month. He wants to be back in time for Fork Fest and the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So he'll be coming back to New Hampshire, going straight to Rogers Campground, and I expect we'll have him back on the air sometime toward the end of the month.
All right,
well,
Fork
that's
Fest.
great because I really love Beer Talk Live on Saturday night after the Saturday night show at 10:30. Nobody will do a show with Captain Kickbutt and Mr. Mountaineer, and they're really good, especially nobody. I wish Chris could get in there, Mr. Penguin.
No, he doesn't have a beard.
I love that
He'd have
guy.
to do this. He'd have to use the strap-on in order to do that. Hey, thank you for the call, Bobby. I appreciate the comments and the compliments. Beard Talk Live, by the way, a lot of people are really liking that show.
That's good.
They got themselves T-shirts now, which you can buy on Amazon. Just search for Beard Talk Live, and stickers. Captain Kickass had stickers that he went out and had manufactured. He's going to have like a whole roll of those things at Pork Fest and Fork Fest, and he'll be giving those away to fans of the show. So if you're going to be there, definitely come see him. He's also going to premiere his new music tracks at Fork Fest. I believe the last night, Sunday night of Fork Fest, which is the 18th of June. He's going to have like a listening premiere party. I don't know where that's going to be. Maybe at the Free Talk Live tent, I think. So that should
mentioned
be cool. Oh, you know what? I think he did tell me where it was, but it might not have been. Anyway, if you're at Fork Fest, you'll probably find out where it is. Just hop into the chat rooms, and I believe people will be sharing what's going on in there. You can get connected to those rooms and such by going to forkfest.party. And if you're frustrated with the Free State Project and the Porcupine Freedom Festival, there is the alternative, which is Fork Fest, and it's happening from the 15th through the 18th. We didn't really talk about it much last night. I don't think at all, really.
I don't think it ever
while
came
we were
up.
talking about the Porcupine Freedom Festival. We've been promoting both events because they are a great combination. If you're coming up to one or both, if you can stay for both, stay for both. But if you can't afford going to the Porcupine Freedom Festival because it is a sold out campground and the tickets are $100 or something like that for the week. Fork Fest, there is no ticket price. It is a decentralized alternative. Nobody is in charge of Fork Fest, so if there's something going on you don't like. No one. That's a good point. Yeah, nobody. If there's something going on there that you don't like, you just don't attend it.
Yep.
And
it's that simple.
There's nothing.
Here
to
I try to
protest.
play the game. I try not to play the game with Rich Paul's dumb pseudonym there, and I still end up having to do it because it's an ambiguation and a problem.
It's fun, Mark. Have fun with it.
It's fun to be confused.
Yes, that's why we played the Onion Radio News during our breaks on Free Talk Live's live stream. And that'll be coming up, too, by the way, if you're listening on our live streams over at freetalklive.com, lrn.fm. We got more on the way with the radio show. We got one more hour to go here, and, of course, plenty of time for you if you want to join us at 603-283-6160. That's coming up.
Free Talk Live.
We're talking about the immigration situation here in this country. Now, Jeff, you have a 5-point plan. I'd like for you to go over the 5 points again.
Oh, sure. Hold on. I just got to turn to the page.
That's fine. And if you, he's got pages worth of
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Number one, close the borders. Put up a barrier on the border. And I mean a barrier.
Like a great wall?
Yeah, a great wall, barrier, stone wall.
Right.
I mean, something that's secure. And then you put a moat underneath.
Holy crap. Alligators in the moat.
All right. Now, you've got more, though, right? We got a wall and a moat, and then what?
And you can put sensors on there. The motion detector.
Motion tracking machine guns, too. Spit out some 50 cals at them if it moves.
Ninjas. That's what we need. We just need ninjas mounted at 10-foot intervals along this wall.
The border ninjas.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at lrn.fm.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. Thousands of people in Ukraine have been evacuated after a dam was destroyed. Kiev and Moscow blame each other for what United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls a humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe. Jody Jacobs reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
Antonio Guterres says Tuesday's attack is another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He says more than 16,000 people have already lost their homes, and clean drinking water supplies are now also at risk to thousands more. Guterres says the UN and its humanitarian partners are rushing in to support the government of Ukraine with drinking water and water purification tablets and other critical supplies.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has officially launched his bid for the White House. The one-time Trump ally turned harsh critic is just the latest Republican to jump into the race. Tony Waterman reports.
This is the second time Christie will be chasing the White House. He ran in 2016 but dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. That support, though, has now soured, and Christie says the former president is unfit to serve after inciting the January 6 attacks. But Christie's sharp criticism has so far paid little dividends. A recent Monmouth poll found Christie is the least liked among Republican voters.
The PGA Tour and LIV Golf have agreed to merge, ending the rivalry that's engulfed the golf world over the past year. The deal means that the Saudi government, LIV's main backer, will have a major stake in the new business entity. US correspondent Ira Spitzer has more.
Since its launch in late 2021, the Saudi-backed LIV Golf Circuit created a bitter schism in the golf world, drawing top players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson away from the PGA Tour, resulting in a flurry of legal action. Now, they will join forces, together with the PGA's European affiliate, the DP World Tour. Professional golfers appeared to have been blindsided by the news, with some taking to social media to express their surprise at the shocking turn of events. Previously, the PGA's top official Jay Monahan had criticized LIV as an attempt for Saudi Arabia to buy the game of golf. Now he will become the chief executive at the new, collectively owned, for-profit entity. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
Donald Trump has protested his innocence by unleashing a torrent of social media posts, lambasting the US Department of Justice a day after his lawyers met with DOJ officials amid an investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents. On his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed he did nothing wrong, despite the FBI finding dozens of sensitive files at his Mar-a-Lago estate last summer. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in detail today at fears that plans by the US and Britain to supply nuclear-powered submarines to Australia might pierce the world's nuclear non-proliferation agreements. When the AUKUS Pact first came together last year around that submarine sale to Australia, China immediately objected to it, arguing that Australia, a non-nuclear state, should not be supplied with submarines powered by nuclear materials that could be diverted into a weapons program. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency is grappling with how to regulate the issue. Carla Ann Robbins, with America's Council on Foreign Relations, lays out the problem.
The NPT does not ban non-nuclear weapon states from building or operating nuclear-powered ships, even for military use. But until now, only the 5 NPT-recognized nuclear powers, the U.S., Russia, China, Britain, and France, have had nuclear submarines. No one believes there's a danger that the Australians can or would divert the reactor's highly enriched uranium fuel. But many experts have warned that the U.S., U.K., and Australia are setting a dangerous precedent, and states that might want to pursue a secret nuclear weapons program could say they want nuclear-powered submarines and then divert the fuel for their own secret weapons program.
The head of the IAEA has acknowledged the scale of the problem by calling the submarine sale, brokered by Washington and London, a game-changer for non-proliferation safeguards. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
From the creation of the Bible in 1912 by a struggling Baltimore book salesman to the day in 1493 when Christopher Columbus and his crew looked back on their voyage and realized what they truly discovered was themselves. The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On July 21st, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to set foot on the surface of the moon. The moon, for Christ's sake.
This is Tranquility Base. The Eagle has landed. Jesus H. Christ, Houston. We're on the moon. Over.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy that. We cannot believe you are on the moon.
I'm descending the ladder. Just one more step and I'm holy, living. I absolutely am standing on the surface of the moon. Jesus H. Christ in a chicken basket.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, and you can join the show. Here's the number 603-283-6160. We're kicking off the third hour, and we have time for you if you want to join us. That's again 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Aria, and Mark joining you tonight. You can join us online, of course, at freetalklive.com, where we have many features, and they are free for you. I do want to say big thanks to the decentralized organization over at Dash. Dash is a cryptocurrency that is focused on actually being useful, on actually being spendable in the marketplace. And they have accomplished that task, and they continue to focus on that with their decentralized autonomous organization, the world's first, by the way. Nowadays in crypto, decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, are everywhere. They're very popular. There's, I don't know, a dime a dozen. They're very, very successful. Some of them haven't worked out. But the Dash one was the first one on the planet, and it's working great. In fact, the way it works is every time the blocks are mined onto the blockchain, which, as we explained earlier, the blockchain is the decentralized ledger. That is the list of all transactions that have ever occurred since the very beginning of Dash. When those blocks are mined, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury, basically. And then the Dash masternodes can vote on how to spend that money. Essentially, anybody who has one Dash, which right now is worth around $40, one Dash, you put up a proposal that can do virtually anything. So you put the proposal forward, the masternodes vet those proposals. They're going to ask some questions. They might ask some really tough questions. And then they will vote on those proposals by the end of the month. And if enough people, enough masternodes vote in favor of it, it passes. And then that could do all kinds of different things for Dash, like doing advertising, developing new features, and things like that. So Dash did it first with their decentralized autonomous organization, and they did a great job with it. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, by the way. It's widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get. It's easy to use Dash. You can start by learning more at Dash.org. And again, thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. You can visit Dash.org and learn about Dash. That is Dash.org. Let's go. She's here now. Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Now, Sarah, we know you're not a listener of Free Talk Live. You are exclusively a caller to the show, which makes you kind of an unusual character. And I don't want this to sound like we're just going to be a matchmaking company for our listeners, because I think that would be pretty boring. But I think Sarah's a special case.
Oh, she's special.
Yes, she's very special. She calls every night on the show. You're breathing a little heavily there, Sarah, into the phone.
You got her all worked up.
And there have been two gentlemen. I just want to let you know there have been two gentlemen suitors who have called the show tonight, potential suitors for you, that have called the show. One of them is Ricky in Pennsylvania. He's a man in his 50s. He is partially blind, but also a very regular caller. Also,
means you don't have to do makeup.
Also, a nightly caller, pretty much every night. So that's something you guys have in common. And
he's also put together a date package, which includes a bus ride to Pennsylvania.
That's right. Yep, he's willing to buy you the bus ticket up to PA to come see him. He said he's willing to get a hotel room, if it goes that far.
With 2 beds.
Yep, and pick you up, in a cab of some sort to take you to presumably some kind of a restaurant. So, any thoughts?
I'm very quite flattered.
Well, we're not done yet, Sarah.
Did I miss something?
Well, there's Bobby from Florida.
Oh, Bobby from Florida. But yeah, Ricky called first, so I wanted to put that one out there.
But Bobby has wanted her longer.
So he says.
To be fair.
But we don't know how.
These guys are arguing about you, Sarah. I mean,
I'm already with somebody, I'm already living with somebody. I'm not interested in looking for anybody else.
Well, the good news then, because Bobby, to satisfy Bobby, you don't have to get involved. All you have to do is make an OnlyFans and sell him pictures of your feet.
I'm pretty much involved with my life, and I'm not gonna go trouble on the bus or running around.
No, you don't have to do that, Sarah. All you have to do is send this guy some pictures of your feet every once in a while, and he'll give you money.
The money rolls in.
It's okay.
But then she'd have to report that to the government. If she makes too much money, then she loses the welfare.
To be worried about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I got things I gotta worry about.
She would have to figure out how to create an email account before she could get an OnlyFans. So that's probably it's probably a too high of a mountain to climb there.
Bobby could create the OnlyFans for you.
Apparently, you've got a couple.
You just have to supply it with content.
Well, I'm more angry about this. How about this?
We don't care about that.
They want to weaken the power of our mayor in Albuquerque. For what reason?
This bothers you?
Who knows what?
She just blew off Ricky and Bobby. Without even a dismissal.
Because she wants to blow the mayor.
Apparently, yeah.
Well,
that's what turns her on. Power.
People,
you're right. Yeah.
No, they want to. So they want to, for every ballot measure. Every decision making, the mayor is going to be part of the councilors. So it's going to make them 10.
And this bothers you?
It makes it into a tie, and they're not talking about a tiebreaker. There's not going to be a tiebreaker. It's going to be exactly 5 and another 5 that opposes it. It's going to be just gridlock.
So you're saying the mayor...
No, Sarah, how often does your city council actually gridlock? It can't be very common.
It goes really. It's only 9, so I don't think they can't gridlock.
Well, they could gridlock if one of the councilors was absent.
How often are they roughly evenly split on a thing? Because I know how city councils work. It's usually like 4-1 or 9-1 or 8-1
it happens,
or 7-2 or whatever.
In Keene, the mayor is a tie-breaking vote, so that's the way it works here in Keene, New Hampshire, where if the council, which is normally 15. But there's usually 1 or 2 that aren't there just because people don't show up sometimes. So sometimes it can be a tie vote because of that, and the mayor would then cast the tie-breaking vote. So what is the power of the mayor right now, Sarah, and what are they proposing to do that would disempower the mayor?
Well, he just wants to show him up for like ribbon cutting, and he's going to become like one of the counselors.
So you're saying he has no vote right now but he would be
no.
given a vote if this proposal passes?
Right now,
that's
he
not
can
giving him
veto
less
or-
power. That's giving him more power, Sarah.
Well, all he can do is just vote right now. But if it makes it to his desk, he could veto or pass it.
He can
He's like
still
the
do that.
governor,
Oh, he has a
like the
veto?
president.
He has veto ability?
Right. That's correct. Right now, he's an executive.
He would lose that ability in this proposal?
That's correct.
I
That's
see.
correct. And then what gets me mad is I am so baffled. I am so confused. And they're going to stick this to the Albuquerque voters. This is completely.
Oh, and you don't like the voters
amazing.
because they voted to get rid of the red light cameras.
No, the voters. Okay, what voters? What little people that we do show up to vote? We're so confused. I'm confused. I have no idea what.
Tell me about it.
Wanting us to vote for.
So
okay?
Sarah,
I don't know what it
take
does.
everything you just said and please explain to me why I should be happy that you vote.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So why are they going to make all these complicated, like a very, very people don't understand what pros and cons about anything, and they're going to dump this onto the voters.
Well, usually, as you pointed out, Sarah, in a municipal election, it is actually the most, I would say, the most with it voters that show up, because the average Joe Blow that's just like, I want to vote for Trump or Biden, and then that's the only reason they show up at an election.
I honestly think I felt a blood vessel burst in my head with Sarah's inability to answer the question.
Well, anyway, the people that vote in a municipal election, it's a very small number. It's usually like 10% or less. And these are the people that pay attention for the most part. These are actually the most informed voters. These are the people who are aware of who the candidates are in many cases.
They say, but it's really relative, I think, and I think
Right.
Running for Sheriff showed that
I'm talking about municipal elections.
Well, this was
Sheriff is a countywide.
So what
election.
Ari is saying is that the voters are essentially the winner of the gold medal at the Special Olympics.
Yeah, more or less. I think the well-informed, well-connected voters that we saw, especially like during the primary campaign as well, they're ignorant. I mean, they may be slightly better informed than the average voter, but it's very, very slight.
Okay. So you're right. Maybe they pay much. It's local elections, so they make the local laws, so people pay more attention to what the local councilors and what they're doing in their city. Yes, and that's why they made the mayor's election so important, because he had an executive power. He could veto, and so people showed up. They paid it. They show up in mass numbers to vote in the mayor because it's very critical.
Ignorant,
right?
confused people who don't know left from right showed up to vote, right?
Well, that's the whole thing.
Right? Is that correct?
This is so they're up to something. What I'm saying, they're deceptive. Be people that are trying to pass.
How
this
can
or
she know
conjure
how
this up.
stupid the average voter is and then be like, this is a good thing? I don't understand, Sarah.
Wait, she's not saying this is a good thing.
You choose. You vote for it against it.
Voting in general being a good thing.
What?
So, Sarah, so I take it you're going to vote against this proposed change, right?
Well, you know something. I think I'm gonna keep it the way it is. There was a reason why we have this strong mayor in the first place in 1974. It was set up.
How would you guys vote? How would you guys vote
1971.
on this if you had this proposal to essentially strip the mayor of his veto or signing powers or whatever, and make him essentially into the city councilor that runs the meetings? What do you guys think about that?
I think that this is yes, absolutely. Let's move that deck chair over here on this sinking ship.
Yeah. Why don't you? Yeah.
What's your?
Yeah.
This is my opinion on the subject is that that I've lived in towns with strong mayors and I've lived in towns with weak mayors, and they're all corrupt.
Sure. Yeah.
I think in theory, I like the idea of someone in government being able to say, no, you can't do this, right? That's a good idea. That's what the Supreme Court was supposed to be and all this. In theory, that's a wonderful thing. And as an anarchist, I would be for that if there was going to be a government at all. But I've seen this in practice. And I know that the veto power is more or less just a rubber stamp of government authority. So in theory, I would rather the mayor maintain that veto power, because if the mayor can say no, then in theory, they're more likely to say no, and that's more likely to inhibit the government trying to do things that it wants to do. But in practice, the mayor is part of the government. He's going to authorize the government to do whatever it is they want to do, and he's not going to use that veto power for good. he's going to use it for his own benefits or the benefit of his crony pals. So in theory, I'm for it, but in practice, I don't care, and I'm with Mark.
I think Mark makes the most salient point on this. Sarah, thanks for the call tonight. Thanks for bringing that up. Sorry to Ricky and Bobby. She's not interested, guys.
But I mean, like the veto power for the president, that's a good thing, right? For the president to say, no, Congress, I don't
If they use it, but they don't hardly ever use it.
Right, I'm saying in theory.
Yeah, and this is something that I've actually been kind of, I don't know, rolling over in my mind to some extent, because I like the idea of decentralization, right? The idea of let's take power out of the hands of the few and decentralize it to more. And the proposal I think that I was considering was, well, if we could do it, which you won't be able to do it, but if we could do it, would we want to get rid of the New Hampshire Senate and become what they call a unicameral, single legislative body?
Like Nebraska.
Nebraska has this, right? What is the value of the New Hampshire Senate? It's 24 people as compared to 400 in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. There's no doubt that the House of Representatives is closer to the people, meaning that each so-called representative represents roughly 3,000 to 3,500 people. And I don't know what 1.4 million divided by 24 is, but it's much larger than 3,000, right? So they're not as connected to the people they supposedly serve. But at the same time, so like from that sort of fundamental premise, I would sort of support getting rid of them. But at the same time, I've seen them block some bad bills that have come out of the House. And like I was glad that they blocked those bad bills. So, for instance, marijuana legalization, which would have had taxes and regulations attached to it, they blocked it for the wrong reasons because they're just drug warriors, and that's the reason they blocked it.
Right.
But they did block it, and I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah,
So,
I understand exactly where you're coming from. Like the New Hampshire House or something recently passed some anti-trans bill or something. I don't remember the details about it, but Sununu vetoed it. Or was going to veto it. I don't remember all of the specifics, as I said. And I was like, you people have put me in a position here where I'm grateful for Sununu.
Yeah.
And that frustrates me. But I like that the system has that potential where someone can do the right thing for the wrong reasons. But it's like being right on accident. I would rather them be right for the right reasons. But if they're going to do the right thing, I don't really care what their reason is for doing it.
Yeah, I take results every single time. My opinion on this subject is that it doesn't matter to me whether the SWAT team wears tan, dark blue, or black when they kick my door in and run 2 Bearcats into the house. What I care about is stopping that from happening. So it doesn't matter to me what happens to the New Hampshire Senate. New Hampshire happens to be the freest state in the union, not because of many of the reasons that are purported here on Free Talk Live, but largely because of one reason. And that reason is that it in fact has a tricameral house. That it is that when you count the executive council, there are 3 levels of bodies of legislators. Now, the executive council can't initiate a legislation, but it can certainly stop most legislation, any that has a financial aspect to it. So this is the reason that New Hampshire is the freest state in the union, is because it is so gosh darned difficult to get legislation through and to undo legislation once it has gotten through. So you have to go through the 3 levels and then the governor and that whole thing. So I say keep it.
Okay.
But here's what my solution is. And I've said it many times in the air, and I'm going to say it again because, well, somebody might be listening that could actually make a difference. The solution in New Hampshire is a constitutional amendment. And that constitutional amendment is that all laws must pass with a 2/3 majority. Now, I'm fine with it being 60% or 75% or whatever number, but you pick a number. I like 66. 2/3 majority through both the House and the Senate and the executive council too. Heck, why not? Make sure that good politicians, presumably good people that we've all picked, all agree that this is a good law to have. Do we really want the law that squeaks through by 51% in both of these houses and then squeaks through the executive council? Is that really the law we're looking for?
Well,
now,
we don't.
Hold on. This
like
amendment would drive a stake through partisan politics' heart.
Yeah, it's a
It
good
would
proposal.
kill the Democrat-Republican yickety-yak that goes back and forth. And finally, our politicians would have to serve us, the people, rather than anything else. And then, as an addition to this, all laws that are undone ought to be undone by a simple majority. And what this may do, and I'm not promising this, I promise the driving the stake through the heart of the partisan politics, but it may turn the legislature into a body that cleans up the law so that we don't have no marionettes actors in Manchester, no baseball games in Keene on a Sunday, no adding, you can't put a wrapper into a milk carton. I mean, literally, these are all illegal things in the state of New Hampshire. And, well, sorry, maybe we can change it into this is a body that undoes these things. I wish that was the case.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good proposal. I think maybe if we're going to add anything, it should be that a sunset provision to where these laws have to be, reinitiated over time.
I like that. Every law should expire.
Yeah.
Every legislative session
I know
might be a bit much.
That's a lot of work, right?
Every 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, every 10 years at least, sure.
Yeah, they'll just go and do all the laws at once. When they do that, they'll just say, all the bodies of laws are back in play. And
then I would say they make it where they have to do it individually.
Individually, based on when they're passed.
I'm happy with murder laws being set out and just, being, hey, this is illegal. Well, what? They don't work to do what?
No law works to prevent any sort of act that is designed to prohibit. If someone wants
I don't know that that's true.
Well, it's definitively true. If someone wants to commit murder, it's not the fact that it's illegal that's going to stop them. It's the fact that they don't have a sense of morality. Let me rephrase that.
You don't have
the reason that people
test this.
Mark, I let you rant. Let me ask you the damn question. The reason that people commit murder is because their own internal sense of morality has broken down, and they're psychopaths or sociopaths, and they want to inflict harm on others. It's not because the government made it legal, so it's okay for me to kill people. No. Once their internal sense of morality breaks down, the law isn't going to stop them. If it did, murder would never happen. But murder does happen, even though it's illegal. So what good is this law doing?
There are currently places in the world where you can murder people and the legal apparatus will fail to come after you. The likelihood is very high. And murders in those places tend to be more numerous. So I would say that laws against murder are effective in diminishing murders. Now, I don't think you'll ever get rid of murders, but you can certainly diminish them. You wouldn't look to Iceland. This is a place that basically doesn't have murder and has a murder law. So I'm going to go ahead and say murder law is good.
I mean, by that exact argument, drug laws are good. Prostitution laws are good. All of these other things that prohibit things that some people find undesirable are therefore good.
I don't know that drug laws. I don't know that drugs are done more often in places with drug laws or less often. In fact, I would go ahead and
just point to one or two places and say, well, that's fine, because you're not going to find any places where murder is not illegal anyway. So that we're not going to find a good analogy.
You can't find whether it's illegal, but you can find a place that doesn't have an effective policing organization.
Yeah, but that's very different because that sort of thing breeds corruption and hostility and that sort of thing.
U.S. police aren't particularly effective on solving murders, by the way. I mean, it's like 50% at best.
Yeah, it's like 50%, but there are places where 90% of murders.
My point, Mark, is that your position that murder laws are good is a faith-based position that has no rational evidence to support it.
Well, I've offered some evidence.
No,
you're right. I don't have a place where there are no murder laws.
Right. So you're speculating.
Well, actually, I can say this. I can
based
say
on places
that
where laws are badly enforced because there's a lot of corruption and bad funding and a lot of
Kim
poverty.
Jong-un is a man who can murder whomever he wishes.
It's not murder when the government does it.
And he can kill whomever he wishes, and he can expect no charges every time. And he's murdered many.
He's a psychopath.
Equally, the Queen of England was a person who could murder anyone and killed no one. So I don't know how to exactly.
That's true.
There's been a ton of people that the police in the UK have killed.
Wasn't she queen during a ton of colonialization?
She had she never used her executive power. Her executive power?
Isn't the world still dealing with her colonialization, especially in Southeast Asia?
I
think Mark is saying that she herself never ordered someone's death directly, but she certainly presided over one of the most murderous governments in human history.
Well, Charles Manson never took anyone's life, right?
Right. She didn't stop the murders. Let's just say
but
that.
if Charles Manson ordered the murder, then Charles Manson's responsible. If the Queen of England only didn't pull the lever to stop the murders, then by libertarian philosophy, she is not
ridiculous.
Didn't order murders?
If she has the executive power and she doesn't stop people that are under her underlings from doing killings, she's absolutely responsible for that. There's more coming up here in moments. The number is 603-283-6160. If you want to join the show, you can do that. We'll get back to the chief thug of the SEC here in moments.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, Hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't going to make it.
Wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me.
What
am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Officials representing Moscow and Kyiv at the United Nations have accused each other of destroying a dam in Ukraine. Roughly 40,000 people have been evacuated, and more than 40 towns and villages are believed to be flooded or partially flooded. FSN's William Denzela reports from UN headquarters in New York.
Addressing a UN Security Council meeting, Ukraine's representative accused Russia of ecological and technological terrorism. Moscow's UN representative accused Ukraine of committing an unthinkable crime to divert attention from a failing counteroffensive. The UK says it'll keep assessing evidence, but the dam's destruction is ultimately the consequence of Russia's war in Ukraine. At least 16,000 people have lost their homes, with thousands more without safe drinking water. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the dam's destruction is a humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe. William Denslow, New York.
Donald Trump has protested his innocence by unleashing a torrent of social media posts lambasting the U.S. Department of Justice a day after his lawyers met with DOJ officials amid an investigation into the former president's handling of classified documents. FSN's U.S. correspondent Benji Heyer has more.
Lashing out when under scrutiny. It's not a new move in the Donald Trump playbook. This time, he's pointing the finger at federal agencies and his successor Joe Biden, also at the centre of a special counsel probe looking into the current president's handling of classified documents. The difference, Biden's team alerted officials upon discovering papers and promptly returned them. Trump refused to turn over all the files in his possession. And we've learned too that an employee at his Florida residence drained the resort's swimming pool in October, accidentally or intentionally flooding a room with computer servers containing surveillance video logs. CNN sources say prosecutors are suspicious.
Japan is declining to comment on reported objections by French President Emmanuel Macron to NATO opening an office in Tokyo. FSN's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
NATO is eager to increase its presence in the Indo-Pacific over concerns about Russia's growing cooperation with China. Its relationship with Japan is getting closer, and it intends to open a Tokyo office this year. But the plan has upset Beijing, and now French President Macron has reportedly said NATO should not extend its reach beyond the North Atlantic, saying enlarging its spectrum would be a big mistake. Another French official reportedly said setting up the office could potentially upset the balance of ties with China in the region. In response, Japan's top spokesperson, Hirokazu Matsuno, only said that various considerations are taking place inside NATO.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. We got time for you if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you know what? We haven't talked about the alien craft story, and I know, Aria, that's something that you've mentioned that you wanted to discuss. And that's an interesting one. I have not actually looked into it, but apparently there's somebody saying that the U.S. military's got some downed alien craft that they've been looking at over some amount of time. And maybe we'll learn more about that. The number here is 603-283-6160. By the way, I want to give kudos, I think, to Tucker Carlson for striking out on his own after Fox News fired him.
Other than the transphobic part, it was pretty good.
Yeah, this 10-minute video, which I have not quite completed, but I've gone through about 8 minutes of it, came out 3 hours ago, and it was before the last half hour of the show. So at the beginning of 9 o'clock, I told you, Aria, that it had 16-something million views. Now, that doesn't mean...
That's unreal for a number of views, though.
That doesn't mean they watched the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
That's just the number of people who saw this scroll by on their feed, right?
Is that what that means?
I'm looking at the... Yeah, I think that's what it means.
It counts on autoplay as a view?
Because the video doesn't show, like, sometimes on Twitter, it'll show you the number of actual plays the video has. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the view count on the tweet itself.
Okay.
The video
but still,
itself...
16 million is phenomenal.
Yeah. It's now 19.7 a half an hour later.
Yep.
So, cable news, as we've been reporting for the last several years, has been on a decline. Cable itself is on a decline. People are doing what they call cord cutting and have been
radio and broadcast television.
Sure, and newspapers especially.
Well, they couldn't have done anything to make Tucker Carlson more successful than fire him and allow him to strike off on his own and come off to America as the voice of reason, standing against the media leviathan, right?
Right, and essentially
they did him a favor.
Doing it without having to get into another contract with anyone, supposedly.
So now he can say, look, I'm free to say whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
Subscribe to me on Twitter. Yep, and give me that money directly.
And he's talking about this dam destruction that I hadn't really even known anything about. I just kind of heard rumblings about some dam getting blown up, and was it Ukraine or was it Russia? Yet another one of these controversies. And so he kind of makes some points about that, suggesting
the last time there was a controversy like this, it was the United States.
Yeah, the suggestion this time is that it was actually Ukraine who did it, but anyway, that's one of the things he covers, and then also this alien craft story. So good for him for getting out from under the big media thumb. Again, he's not a libertarian per se, but he's always had people on his show that have been contrary to the standard popular opinion, whether it be Jimmy Dore, who's the socialist guy that was against the COVID mandates and such. He's a comedian. He's actually pretty funny, and or other people. So good for him. Let's go to the phones here. I got Major Payne on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, the dam you're referring to is evidently one of the biggest rivers up there, and it's the border between the two of them. You got the Ukrainian army on one side and the Russian army on the other.
Okay.
Now, the dam itself was a hydroelectric plant. So one would have to say, why would they blow up their own hydroelectric plant? And upriver, there's a nuclear power plant. And
just to clarify, this is a Russian controlled plant. This is a Russian area where this attack went on.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm talking about the Ukrainian power plants. It was the Ukrainian power plant on that dam. And
I thought they were Russian.
No, it's under Russian control, as I understand it.
Well, okay.
Ukraine under Russian control?
Well, the Russians consider it to be Russia.
Before the war started. Or are you talking about before
the war? It would have been in Ukraine. Now, if you believe the Russians, the people of this area voted to join Russia. They voted to secede from Ukraine and join Russia. Ukraine, of course, in the Western media and the United States government said that was an illegal election or an illegal vote.
Of course, yeah, we got to believe Russia. They've never hijacked an election. But,
I don't know who to believe, but I know I don't believe the American media.
I don't believe any of them. Yeah, and that's a beautiful place to be in, where I don't have to choose one of these people to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I can say I don't have any reason to trust either one of you, and I don't have a dog in this fight in the first place. So I'm not even going to put my neck out there and saying that the Russians are right or the Ukrainians are right. They're all evil. They're all liars, and I see no reason to believe any of them about anything.
They're both pointing their fingers at one another. According to RT.com, their story is Moscow is claiming the facility was damaged by a Ukrainian strike, and Kyiv is placing the blame on Russia. So, of course, it's, yep. He did it. She did it, whatever.
Well, same old story.
Yeah.
But exactly. As far as the Sarah thing you had going on earlier, you guys really could have confused her if you just told her Ricky Bobby wanted to date her. She just thought it was Will Ferrell and gone nuts. He could have rode the bus up wearing his elf suit and whatnot. It would have been hilarious.
She's never seen Talladega Nights.
Yeah, I don't think she's particularly culturally aware. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but
that is a good movie, though.
I've never seen it. I wouldn't have gotten the reference.
They show Elf every Christmas. Right?
Yeah.
Ricky Bobby, race car movie, they've shown that for, 30 years now? I mean, the guy's almost famous. He's got the ugliest body in Hollywood.
He is ugly. There's no doubt about that. Thank you, Major, for the call tonight.
On Joe Biden.
What now?
Who's that?
A couple of quickies on Joe Biden here.
All right, give us a quickie.
Okay, so he was doing the commencement speech at Annapolis, and after handing out the last diploma, he purportedly slipped over a sandbag, which they wouldn't have had a sandbag on the stage with Joe Biden. But anyway, he did a face plant, and they got him up. And I was listening to the applause as they handed out the last diploma. The applause was pretty good, but when Joe Biden hit his face, you should have heard the hoots and howls, and just the momentum went up tenfold.
That's horrible.
Their fearless leader flat on his face. It was. I wish I could have been there.
Wow. All right. Hey, thanks for the call tonight, Major. I appreciate it.
It's sad what they're doing to this senile old man.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to be too sad about Joe
parading
Biden.
him around.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were like any other senile old man who weren't a war criminal and a murderer,
okay,
then,
that's
you
true.
know, I would see where you were coming from. But Joe Biden is an arch drug warrior from his younger days. He is a scumbag extraordinaire, and he deserves everything that comes to him.
It's also pretty clear that if they would have, let's presume for a second that Joe Biden isn't really sentient. I don't know that I believe that at all. But if he wasn't sentient, if you had asked him back when he was sentient, hey, if you kind of lose your mind, can we make you president and do all kinds of democratic policies in your name and whatever? He'd have said yes.
I mean, fair. Yeah. Good point.
Do you want to talk about Gary Gensler, or do you want to do the alien story?
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I can do either.
We said we were going to do the Gensler thing, so let's see if we can get that one out there. It's not very detailed. It's just what he has to say. This is the chairman of the SEC.
He's saying the quiet part out loud here, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not supposed to be like, guys, screw all these cryptocurrencies. All you need is the dollar. Like, that's supposed to secretly motivate him, like we've been pointing out for the last year and a half.
Right. He's supposed to be saying the things that he usually says, which is like, hey, you guys can exist. Just come in and talk to us, which is what he's been saying. But now...
The U.S. doesn't need any more digital currency, said Gary Gensler, as we pointed out, as his agency sues Binance and Coinbase for operating unregistered securities exchanges. In an interview with CNBC today, Gensler denied claims his approach was muddying the legal position around crypto. He has said this before. And also suggested that there were parallels between his case against Binance and the criminal case against FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried. Or Fried, whatever. We don't need more digital currency. We already have digital currency. It's called the U.S. dollar, Gensler said. We have not seen over the centuries that economies and the public need more than one way to move value. So he's...
We don't need choices. All you people advocating for options in the market of money, you're crazy.
And he wants the one way that the public has to move value to be the government's currency. Like, he could not be laying bare their plans, their goals, their evil intentions more.
Right. My proposition, I think similar to Free Talk Live's, would be that the SEC, the United States government, the FBI, and you just rattle off the alphabet soup agency out there, are all basically just tools of a banking elite that proposes to run the world and extract as much, and in the process of doing that, extract as much value as possible.
Yep.
And this guy has basically said, I am a stooge for these people, and I will do what it takes to make sure that my bosses, my betters, my superiors are taken care of.
Yep, that was exactly it. He will seek to prove that the thousands of tokens tradable on two of the biggest crypto venues resemble investment contracts that should have been registered with his agency rather than mere means of payment. So he's also suggesting
the United States people are unable to make a decision for themselves to buy and sell cryptocurrency. They are too ignorant and should not be able to do this.
All we have to show is that one of them is a security and they should be properly registered, he said. And that's, they do have thousands of cryptocurrencies and whatever on Coinbase and Binance. And for the SEC to win this case, they only have to be able to show that one of those things qualifies as a security. Because if they're selling even one security without being registered, then they're running afoul of the SEC's regulations. But that's where the issue really is. And that's one of the points that Coinbase is making. And again, not a fan of Coinbase. They're the devil, but they're fighting the devil here. So it's like you don't have to pick a side, but like if the devil's going to fight the devil, I want the one that's least evil to win. And that would happen to be Coinbase in this particular example. And they pointed out that the SEC has not provided clarity or regulation. So,
this is interesting, Aria. Now, in the last, I think it was earlier in this segment, might have been the last segment, you said that it's an enviable position for you to be in regarding Russia and Ukraine to not have to pick a side. And here
I said I don't have to pick which side was telling the truth.
Okay.
I can
well,
pick.
All I'm saying is
I would also pick.
You just said
no, Mark. Let me explain. I would also pick.
Least...
No, Mark. I would also pick Ukraine to win the war. Because this is a war where Russia invaded. As far as I can tell. If I had to pick a side to win, I would still say, well, I would prefer Ukraine to win over Russia.
Russia invaded purportedly because Ukraine was bombing the people of the Donbass region, and they invaded purportedly to protect those people
and I don't deny
from
that.
being attacked. So, I mean, that is not per se an invasion if it was indeed done for those reasons.
Right, but there's also the fact that I think in the grand scheme of things, and I know Mark agrees with this, and I don't know how true it really is, but I would say that the U.S. government is a little bit less evil than the Chinese government. And if I had to pick one of these two entities to live under, I would pick the U.S. government. In the same way with Ukraine and Russia. I would say that Ukrainian government is probably a little bit less evil than the Russian government. If I had to pick one to live under, again, I would probably choose the Ukrainian government. And that's all I mean when I say between Coinbase and the government, I would rather Coinbase win this fight. Well, yes, because they're a little bit less evil than the U.S. government. But how less evil? I don't know.
Part. I agree that Coinbase is the one that I would pick in this. I don't know that I can pick a side between Russia and Ukraine because I just don't have enough information. I can say that, if I was told, Mark, you must pick right now between these two guys that are fighting, it's Stalin and Hitler.
That's pretty much what you just threw at me.
I understand that. And I'm just pointing out that you can't always know.
Yeah, sure. But Gensler goes on to say there's been clarity for years about the nature of securities laws, brushing off concerns that crypto firms have been left facing uncertain enforcement. These intermediaries need to come into compliance, but they won't say and they know they won't say what the compliance requires because they've specifically said that they won't say that because if they do, people will know how to get around compliance.
Look, we'll know it when we see it.
Yeah, it's completely crazy that he's like, you need to come into compliance, but we won't tell you that because if we do, we'll tell you how to stay out of compliance.
Where's your story from?
This is CoinDesk.
The one over at blockworks.co has the full quote that I think CoinDesk truncated. The one about, quote, look, we don't need more digital currency.
Oh, yeah.
We already have digital currency. It's called the U.S. dollar. And then he continues. He says, it's called the euro. It's called the yen. They're all digital right now. We already have digital investments, he said.
Wow. He's right.
I want to point out that these are not investments. Okay, these are currencies. They are foreign currencies, all manipulated by central banks. The yen, the euro, you fill in whatever central bank currency there. These are all being printed. All of them are being inflated. So whether the U.S. dollar is quote-unquote stronger than the euro or the euro stronger than the pound or whatever it is, right? These are just inflated currencies that are trading against one another, and they're all being inflated. So really the question is, which ones are being inflated worse than the others, and what's the market going to do with that? Trading those things, that's just day trading, okay? That's not the same thing as an investment into, say, a company, where the value of that company could go up or down over time, right? This is just, you're just playing, you're gambling, right? Like if you're buying dollars and then buying euros with those and then turning them around to buy yen, that's just straight up gambling.
Yep.
It's not an investment.
Mark, I thought of another way to explain it too. My statement about Russia and Ukraine and not knowing who was telling the truth, that's basically me saying, I don't have to pick between these two things. Well, then when I said that about Coinbase or in the American government, I said, well, if I did have to pick. So I'm basically, that was the difference. And one of this, I said, I don't have to pick, but if I did have to pick, I would choose Coinbase. That was the difference. So there wasn't really a disparity between them. It was just different scenarios. So they're going to, I scrolled up a lot because that quote really lays bare, again, everything. He lays out a bunch of digital currencies, and he's right. The euro, the USD, the yen, these are all largely digital currencies now. They're also all government currencies.
Mm-hmm.
So why does he think we do need some competition where we need the yen and the euro and the USD or whatever, but we don't need alternatives like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Dash?
We know why. Because they being the central banks of the world and their buddies aren't in control of those.
That's exactly it.
Right. Well, let's not also forget that he didn't mention in that list that I heard just now any of the opposing side, right? Like you could buy yuan or rubles or any variety of currencies that he doesn't particularly like. He mentions yen and euros and dollars because those are good guys.
Excellent point. He goes on.
Ladies and gentlemen, it could very well come to a point where if you bought rubles in a quantity that he decided was enough to be playing the market and you picking Russia to win, that you are now a bad American and you are doing an illegal security exchange or something.
That's a really good point as well. And, I don't know. Buying some rubles may not be the worst thing someone could do with their money right now. He goes on, however, there's parallels here to the FTX fraud manipulation that we saw against Sam Bankman-Fried, or Fried. I still don't know which one it's supposed to be.
Except Bankman ended up with criminal charges and is facing years in prison, whereas the other companies are just facing civil lawsuits.
He's also assuming his guilt. And that, to me, seems a bit screwed up. You're a government employee. I know, but he's a government employee. He's supposed to assume people are innocent until they're proven guilty.
That's not what the prosecution does.
No, and look, I get it. In the stupid little system they played, the prosecutors have to play devil's advocate. That's just the role they have to play. It's evil, and I think they should probably have the sense of morality to not play it.
For sure.
But I'm willing to acquiesce that, right? Like, that's the role that they've chosen to play, whether they want to or not. Someone's got to be that bad guy.
I can't remember, but it seems like it was Barack Obama who said basically that Dread Pirate Roberts, was guilty.
This is the founder of the Silk Road, the underground drug marketplace.
And Ian, you'll probably need to help me out on this one because I just don't remember exactly, but it seems like this was the case. It certainly was Barack Obama, and he certainly came out and said that somebody was guilty in some trial that was going on. And I was just shocked that, the president would be so, breathtakingly, short-sighted as to say, well, this person's guilty before the trial is ended, when it sounds very much like the chief executive making this declaration is essentially ordering his minions in the government to find somebody guilty.
Well, I mean, his minions are the Justice Department, and they're the ones bringing the case. I mean, it's not a surprise at all that their boss would say they were doing the right thing.
Right, but they've set up all of this mythology that they have to. There's a lot of pretense in the American system where the president pretends to care about justice and all this other stuff.
All you have to do is just pay attention to know that that's all pretense, and it means nothing.
But to
maybe
the average
it was
person,
Assange, maybe it was Snowden, maybe it was somebody else, but it was certainly Barack Obama.
The average person is supposed to be shocked when the president says, a government is just an organization with a monopoly on the use of force in a given area. Or
no doubt, but the average person never heard him say it.
Libertarians are like, wow, yeah, he's right. That's what we've been telling you. But the average person is like, that's not what how could the president say that?
He didn't mean that.
Right. Just like the average person is supposed to, I don't know, the president, Barack Obama was supposed to say, well, he's innocent until proven guilty in the court of law.
I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the average person's response to that was. I mean, if you did a man on the street and you played that clip, I suspect a lot of people would be like, huh?
Yeah, they wouldn't understand it. Yeah.
What does that mean? Monopoly on force. Hey, is that a McDonald's over there?
Yeah.
And they'd walk away.
And that's sad.
I mean, you're not going to get much out of the average person on this.
He goes on,
Well, I did it in a group of Quakers, and they tried to explain it away 100 different ways, and I'm like, okay, I see. You want to listen to the 2-minute version with context. No problem.
All right.
So I pulled that baby up, and then they're like, and then it obviously meant that the thing that separates nation states from other organizational models is the monopoly on violence, right? Like this is, by definition, there are groups, and then there's one particular type of group, a nation state, which has a monopoly on violence.
That's right.
And within a geographic area. And trying to explain that away doesn't make your vote legitimate or good or just or anything like that. And, in the case of Quakers, they eschew force and violence, so they didn't know what to do with it. And they just had to sort of justify their own actions.
Yeah, that's the place a lot of people end up in, cognitive dissonance, where they know that they've committed some act of aggression or whatsoever by voting for Barack Obama or whatever. And that's a difficult one to face, and they're not prepared for, so they just choose not to think about it.
That's cognitive dissonance for you, for sure. Now, these people in your Quaker meeting are not average people. These are people who are usually politically opinionated, right? Like these are, in many cases, leftists. Am I correct about that?
Quakers often are leftists. This wasn't my meeting in Keene.
Mm-hmm.
So Gensler goes on, you see platform after platform where the entrepreneurs behind the platforms also are trying to build wealth for themselves and their investors.
Oh, you can't do that without our permission.
Yeah, and that's the point of these governments, trading against the customers, or even as it relates to dealing against their customers. What he's accusing them of is using customer funds to invest and buy cryptos or whatever. I don't know exactly what he's being slimy, but he's saying they're misusing customer funds. And no, when I don't do this anymore, but when I gave money to Coinbase or whatever to buy cryptocurrency, I knew that when they had that cryptocurrency in their wallets, they were going to use it for their benefit. That's just how the game is played. That's what they do. That's why they exist. Gensler noted that the crypto industry needed to improve its compliance and disclosure if it's going to have any success going forward, but he doesn't want it to go forward.
No, he doesn't.
And he makes that clear by saying, look, we don't need all these competitors to the U.S.
I think
dollar.
it's really a revealing statement. I mean, like you said, he's saying the quiet part out loud. This is what they actually believe. That's why they're doing what they're doing, because they want to stop the alternatives. They want to stop you from being able to access these things.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And once they do that, the decentralized exchanges won't do you any good. If you don't have a way to turn the currency of the realm into something better, then you have to be able to get into the cryptocurrency world to play in the cryptocurrency world. And they're trying to control all of the gateways into the cryptocurrency world.
They can't ever stop people from paying others in cryptocurrency. So there will always be ways to acquire it, but they're going to make it harder. They want to make it harder for the average person to get in, and I think they've already accomplished that.
Everything they've done, from going after local Bitcoins to going after the Crypto 6 to going after the Binance and Coinbase, all of that has a singular goal in mind of controlling the gateways to cryptocurrency and making it so that you can't get it easily.
And they want to scare people too. It's like, well, do you really want to get something if the government's going to target you for it?
Yeah, true.
I mean, we know they're not targeting the average user,
but they don't know that.
But what does the person think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, how scared are people going to be when they see all these people getting arrested and all this negativity? Out of time for tonight. I hope that within the next couple days we'll get to talk about this UFO thing, because it looks pretty interesting.
It's compelling.
Yeah. Apparently there's a whistleblower, Air Force veteran, former intelligence officer, claiming the U.S. government has been collecting intact extraterrestrial craft for decades as part of a UFO retrieval program. So maybe tomorrow night or the next night. Definitely an interesting story. We're out of time tonight. We'll see you online in the meantime at freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes to vote on. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the Treasury. In fact, that's exactly how we got this sponsorship. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, the Compassion